Chapter 689. On the other side of Blood Battle Ocean, there was a huge island that spanned several tens of thousands of li. This island was shaped like a scorpion but also like a fork. It faced the Blood Battle Ocean, just like its shape. This island was called Scorpion King Island, which was jointly owned by Black King Gate, Whirlwind Gate, Sky Eagle Cult, and Water Wave Sect. This island had no other purpose other than to gather the forces of the four great powers in order to contend against Dragon God's celestial palace. At this moment, in a palace at the center of the island, the leaders of the four forces were having an intense discussion, and the atmosphere was stifling. Damn it, he killed more than 700 people of my Sky Eagle Cult. This anger, my Sky Eagle Cult will not swallow it. We must make Azure Dragon Hall, and that kid pay with blood. Your Sky Eagle Cult lost more than 700 people, and my Water Wave Sect's casualties are not much less than yours. Even my uncle was killed. Alright, we are not here to complain, but to think of a way to get rid of that kid. As long as we get rid of him, Azure Dragon Hall will be nothing but a toothless tiger, not worth mentioning. The leader of the Black King Sect's branch was a skinny man in black robes, and his expression was cold. In my opinion, that brat definitely has the ability to seek fortune and avoid calamity. He's able to sense danger. Therefore, no scheme will be of much use. Only in upright battle will we have the chance to kill him and get rid of any future troubles. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate said calmly. You're saying that we can kill him without relying on schemes? The leader of the Water Wave Sect's branch was a green-robed elder. Right. The palace was silent for a while, and the leader of the Black King Sect's branch was the first to speak. I agree. I agree. Since all three of you have agreed, it's useless for me to object. I agree. The leader of the Whirlwind Gates branch was in his 50s. He had a long beard and long hair. His eyes were long and narrow. His eyes were flickering with a cold light. He was the leader of the Wind Hall, one of the three branches of the Whirlwind Gate. His name was Lungji. His strength had already reached the peak of the martial arts master realm. Seeing that the leaders of the three factions had agreed, he said, although we don't need to come up with a plan, we still need to come up with a plan. How can we prevent that kid from escaping from our palms? After all, he has the ability to sense danger. The green-robed old man from Water Wave Sect said, sensing danger definitely has a range, and I'm guessing that it won't be too big. As long as one of us attracts him, the other three will go around and cut off his escape route. Wouldn't that be easy? The green-robed old man was older than the three of them. Whether it was conspiracies or tactics, he was able to grasp them easily. The hall master of the Sky Eagle Cult's branch hall, a middle-aged man with a sharp nose, said, then who will attract him? There's no need to force anyone. Everyone will volunteer. How about this? Whoever is willing to attract the other party's attention will get half of the loot and the number of kills. Lungji said. Half of the loot and the number of kills? The eyes of the three hall masters flickered. The resources that could be transported by Yi Chun himself must be very plentiful. If they were to split it evenly, each party would only get 25%. If they could get half, the sect's reward alone would be huge, and their contribution points would definitely double. With enough contribution points, they would be able to exchange for some of the precious resources they wanted, such as spirit energy crystals, supreme-grade spirit stones, semi-supreme-grade pellets, and so on. These were the things that the sects were not willing to give away casually. I'll do it. The man with the sharp nose made his decision. Brother Zhou, you'll attract him? The other three hall masters looked at him. Isn't it just holding him back temporarily? What's there to be surprised about? I don't believe that he can do anything to me. In terms of individual strength, he hasn't shown any overwhelming power yet. The Heavenly Eagle cult had suffered too heavy a loss last time, and many people from the Elder Guild were making things difficult for him. This made him feel even more pressured. One had to know that fighting against the Azure Dragon Hall in the Blood Battle Ocean, although there were some dangers, it was definitely a good job. The other hall masters had always coveted it, and if he could not produce satisfactory results, he might lose this job. Most importantly, what made Yi Chen so troublesome was his ability to seek fortune and avoid calamity, not his individual strength. Of course, Yi Chen's individual strength was also very frightening. He was definitely at the top of the peak masters. Fortunately, this was not a one-on-one battle. Alright, since Brother Zhou has volunteered, we'll fulfill your wish. The three sects were tempted, but they also had some concerns. Sending resources to the Blood Battle Ocean was too common. Not to mention the 1,000 spirit veins of the Dragon God's Celestial Palace, just the rare metals, gemstones, and energy crystals were not few. Of course, some low-quality resources didn't need to be personally transported by deputy hall masters. Only some battle attendants or head attendants would do. Moreover, this kind of inconspicuous transportation would result in casualties on both sides, and rarely would there be ambushes. Generally speaking, Dragon God's Celestial Palace would have a small batch of resources delivered every 3 days, and every half a month, a huge amount of resources would be delivered. Only once every 3 months would a huge amount of resources be delivered by a deputy, such as Yi Chen's previous trip. On this day there was another big mission. The main objective of this mission was to transport the resources of Azure Spirit Island. Azure Spirit Island was one of the most important resource islands of the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. There was only one spirit vein on it, but it was an ordinary upper-grade spirit vein. It was comparable to dozens of peak mid-grade spirit veins. Needless to say, Su Danian, Wu Chuan, and Yi Chen, the 3 deputy hall masters, would all be dispatched to transport the resources of Azure Spirit Island. At night, Yi Chen didn't rest. Instead, he arrived outside Yao Yifeng's residence and disappeared into the darkness with the help of doppelganger transformation art. His soul power spread out, soundlessly covering the entire building complex. Not even the slightest movement could escape Yi Chen's perception. Inside a secret room, Yao Yifeng picked up the snail artifact and spoke. This time, I want a bottle of half-supreme grade marrow cleansing pill and a bottle of half-supreme grade blood tempering pill. The other side turned silent for a moment, then asked, "What's the mission this time? How many people will be dispatched?" The mission this time is to transport the spirit stones of an ordinary upper-grade spirit vein. The number of people dispatched won't be less than 1,000. Is that Yi Chen inside? Yes. Good. I promise you. Great. Yao Yifeng's face revealed a joyous expression. The other side no longer spoke, so Yao Yifeng turned off the snail artifact. With half-supreme grade marrow cleansing pill and blood tempering pill, my constitution will reach an even better level. Cultivating will be twice the result with half the effort. Yi Chen, although you didn't die by my hands, it's still the same as me killing you. If you want to blame something, blame yourself for showing off too much. Is that so? A voice came from outside the secret room. Who is it? Yao Yifeng turned pale with fright. Pucci. The secret room was made of a special metal, which was extremely hard. However, at this moment, a sword light flashed, and the secret room's wall was cut open like tofu. Swish! A figure flashed out. Yi Chen. Yao Yifeng was horrified. It's me. I didn't expect you to be a spy. What proof do you have? Yao Yifeng recovered and said in a gloomy tone. Yi Chen faintly smiled and faintly sucked in a breath. His voice was transmitted out under the urging of Zhen Yuan. Everyone, Yao Yifeng is the spy. I've already caught him. Yi Chen, you dare. Yao Yifeng was incomparably furious. Didn't you say I don't have proof? Since I don't, what are you afraid of? Yi Chen retorted. Humph. You dare to frame me? I'll make you pay the price. Yao Yifeng said fiercely. Soon, Su Danian, Wu Chuan, and even Azure Dragon Hall leader Wei Longtao arrived. One by one, they entered the secret room through the opening. Yi Chen, you said Yao Yifeng is the spy. Do you have proof? Wei Longtao said expressionlessly. Puff. Yi Chen acted ruthlessly. With a flick of his finger, a sword qi severed Yao Yifeng's palm, causing blood to gush out. With a suction force, Yao Yifeng's palm was sucked over. The storage ring on it automatically fell off and landed in Yi Chen's hand. Yi Chen, I want your whole family to die. You actually cut off my palm. Yao Yifeng didn't expect Yi Chen to be so ruthless, cutting off his palm without any proof. He immediately roared in resentment. Wu Chuan and Su Danian were quite moved, inwardly adding Yi Chen to the list of killing gods. A sharp light flickered in Wei Longtao's eyes. Yi Chen, even if your identity is noble, I still have the authority to punish you for framing and harming a fellow comrade. Whether I'm framing or not, everyone will soon know. Without much effort, Yi Chen easily broke the soul imprint on Yao Yifeng's storage ring. His soul power entered and searched inside. Very quickly, Yi Chen took out a snail-shaped metal artifact. Sound-transmitting snail. Su Danian blurted out. Wu Chuan fiercely glared at Yao Yifeng and said furiously, Yao Yifeng, where did you get this sound-transmitting snail? Sound-transmitting snail was more precious than 10 semi-supreme grade artifact. Its refining method had long been lost. Even some life and death kings didn't have it, let alone Yao Yifeng. Yao Yifeng endured the pain and said through clenched teeth, Is it strange that I have a sound-transmitting snail? Everyone has their own fortuitous encounters. This sound-transmitting snail is something I obtained in some ruins. Quibble. Yi Chen opened the sound-transmitting snail and transmitted his Zhen, Yuan, at a special frequency. It was like a code, sometimes long, sometimes short, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. As the Zhen Yuan entered the snail, it gradually emitted a faint radiance, and a small energy whirlpool appeared at the snail's mouth. Reverse. Yi Chen spat out his Zhen Yuan, and the energy whirlpool's direction reversed. Awesome. All right. I promise you. Yes. Is that Yi Chen inside? The mission this time is to bring back the spirit stones of an ordinary upper-grade spirit vein. The number of people dispatched is no less than 1,000. What mission is this time? How many people are dispatched? The conversation between Yao Yifeng and the other party was transmitted from the snail, but in reverse order. You know the method to open the sound-transmitting snail? Yao Yifeng's eyeballs almost popped out, becoming bloodshot. Chapter 690. How do you still want to quibble now? Yi Chen himself didn't know how to open the sound-transmitting snail, but he had previously seen Yao Yifeng use it. How powerful was his soul power? The details of Yao Yifeng opening the sound-transmitting snail were clearly seen by him without the slightest mistake. Yao Yifeng, didn't expect you to really be a spy. Su Danian and Wu Chuan were incomparably furious, their eyes turning blood-red. Yao Yifeng lost his head out of fear and hastily looked at Azure Dragon Hall leader Wei Longtao. Pung! A phantom flickered as Wei Longtao's palm slapped Yao Yifeng's head, exploding it on the spot. His flesh and blood evaporated. Before Yao Yifeng's head exploded, Yi Chen clearly saw the incredulous expression in Yao Yifeng's eyes. It was as if he didn't dare to believe that Wei Longtao would kill him. Not only Yao Yifeng, even Su Danian, Wu Chuan, and Yi Chen didn't dare to believe it. After all, Wei Longtao didn't have the authority to kill Yao Yifeng. Under normal circumstances, Yao Yifeng would be escorted to the headquarters of Dragon God's Celestial Palace to be interrogated by the Elders Association. Hall Leader Wei, what's the meaning of this? Yi Chen's expression turned cold as he questioned. Wei Longtao said with an ice-cold expression, Because of him, my Dragon God's Celestial Palace lost close to 1,000 troops. I once said that if I knew who the spy was, I would personally kill him. Now that I've confirmed that he's a spy, I naturally won't let him live. Deputy Yi, do you have any objections? Of course I do. First, you don't have the authority to kill a great attendant who betrayed Dragon God's celestial palace, because he might have other secrets. Second, you killed Yao Yifeng without the slightest hesitation. Could it be that you were afraid of him saying something important? Before his death, Yao Yifeng shouted your surname. Yi Chen's gaze looked straight at Wei Longtao. There are many surnamed Wei. I don't think he was calling me. Wei Longtao's expression turned gloomy. You still haven't answered my question. Yi Chen did not retreat even half a step. Standing next to Wei Longtao and Yi Chen, Wu Chuan and Su Danian were a little nervous. Wei Longtao was the Azure Dragon Hall Master, and had accumulated his prestige for a long time. Although they were Vice Hall Masters, they didn't dare to go against Wei Longtao. In many people's eyes, Wei Longtao was an iron-blooded person, ruthless and merciless, and although Yi Chen looked young, the baleful aura hidden in his body wasn't any less than Wei Longtao's. In Blood Battle Ocean, the scene of Yi Chen leading hundreds of people and killing in and out of the enemy's camp was still vivid in their minds. And just now, Yi Chen didn't say anything and directly chopped off Yao Yifeng's hand, which made them feel very apprehensive. The two of them confronted each other, swords drawn. Palace Master, Vice Palace Master Yi, let's talk things out. There's no need to get angry. Su Danian came out to mediate. Yeah, if there's anything, let's sit down and talk it out. If we can't come to an agreement, there's still the higher-ups. There's no need to have a conflict over Yao Yifeng's matter. Wu Chuan thought that his temper was fiery enough, but in front of Yi Chen and Wei Longtao, he couldn't put on any airs. These two were ruthless characters. Yi Chen also didn't look at Wu Chuan and Su Danian. Just now, the two of you saw it. Hall Master Wei was in a hurry to kill Yao Yifeng, so he must be hiding something. Before Yao Yifeng died, he shouted the word Wei, and his gaze was also on Hall Master Wei. It's impossible that the two of you didn't notice it. Yi Chen wasn't a detective, nor was he a shrewd and astute character with real power. He was Yi Chen, a swordsman who was now known as a sword master. He had his own way of dealing with things, and there was no need to wait until the truth came to light. He also didn't have that much energy to investigate. As long as he had 50% certainty that there was something wrong with the other party, he wouldn't let it go. Moreover, Wei Longtao had killed Yao Yifeng in front of him, so the matter was different. In short, Yi Chen's goal was to step onto the peak of the sword Dao, and not to play any tricks. He was very clear about his priorities. As for why he didn't make a move when he suspected Yao Yifeng, it was because Yao Yifeng hadn't revealed too many clues. It couldn't be that he would capture him just because his expression was a bit strange. Doing so would only make him lose his popularity. Wei Longtao's actions just now were problematic everywhere. He didn't believe that a dignified Azure Dragon Hall Master couldn't control his emotions. Most importantly, Yao Yifeng's gaze towards Wei Longtao and his shout of the word Wei before his death was extremely suspicious. In truth, Su Danian and Wu Chuan were also suspicious of Wei Longtao. Unfortunately, before the truth came to light, they didn't dare to act rashly. Not to mention, the two of them weren't Wei Longtao's opponent. They originally planned to sit down and have a good chat before secretly sending people to the Dragon God's celestial palace to investigate. Unfortunately, Yi Chen was even more murderous than they had imagined. Wei Longtao only said one sentence, "You have to understand that I'm the Azure Dragon Hall Master. The matters here are decided by me. You have no right to question me." Is that so? You also have to understand one thing. I'm the Dragon God envoy of the Dragon God's celestial palace, and my position is above yours. Not to mention the fact that you're the Azure Dragon Hall Master. Even if you were the Great Elder of Elders Association, as long as I have sufficient reason to believe that there's something wrong with you, I wouldn't tolerate you. Yi Chen squinted his eyes. You dare to use the name of Dragon God Envoy to suppress me? Wei Longtao's aura burst forth, and the air in the chamber became even heavier than mercury. Some of the items in the chamber directly exploded and disintegrated. Why wouldn't I dare? What a good why wouldn't I dare? Deputy Su, Deputy Wu, capture Yi Chen for me. My reason is also very simple. He's familiar with the usage of the sound-transmitting snail, so there's definitely something wrong with him. Wei Longtao clenched his fists and his gaze flickered a few times. In the end, he still suppressed his desire to make a move. In the end, he was extremely apprehensive of Yi Chen's position as Dragon God Envoy. If the other party wasn't a Dragon God Envoy, he would have long since captured him and let him know the immensity of heaven and earth. Hall Master Wei, please forgive us for not being able to comply. Su Danian and Wu Chuan were not idiots. As long as they dared to make a move against Yi Chen, their fates would be miserable. Not to mention the fact that Yi Chen's strength was there for all to see, whether they could capture him or not was still an issue. Most importantly, they didn't have the authority to capture Dragon God Envoy. Doing so would be equivalent to opposing the entire Dragon God Celestial Palace. The Elders Association would certainly capture them and throw them into the water prison. Of course, the two were also unwilling to listen to Wei Longtao's orders. Wei Longtao was a bit angry. Although he didn't believe that Su Danian and Wu Chuan would dare to make a move against Yi Chen, their straightforward refusal made him feel as if his prestige had been challenged. In the past, this would have been absolutely intolerable, and he would have made an example out of them. I'll still say the same thing. Yao Yifeng betrayed the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Killing him won't be a problem. If you think I have a problem, let the higher-ups investigate me. Wei Longtao turned around and left. He had made great contributions to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. He didn't believe that the palace would do anything to him just because he killed Yao Yifeng. With a light chuckle, Yi Chen's aura turned sharp. The mercury-like air in the chamber was instantly sliced into countless strands. In an instant, a frightening sword aura pierced through his body and enveloped Wei Longtao. Hall Master Wei, I'm sorry. As a Dragon God Envoy, I want to bring you back to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. If you have anything to say, you can talk to the elders of the Elders Association. As he spoke, Yi Chen took a step forward and extended his hand to grab Wei Longtao. Pung! Wei Longtao turned around and slapped at Yi Chen. Qi energy spread in all directions, and the walls of the chamber instantly warped. Yi Chen, don't think that just because you're a Dragon God Envoy or a monstrous genius of true spirit continent, you can look down on everyone. I'll let you know what regret is right now. Wei Longtao was furious. Whether I regret or not has nothing to do with you. Yi Chen made the first move. His ghostly speed allowed him to arrive before Wei Longtao in an instant, and he punched at the defenseless Wei Longtao. Rumble! The entire chamber shattered into pieces, and smoke rose in all directions. Amidst the dense smoke, two figures flew out one after the other. Soon after, Su Danian and Wu Chuan appeared in a somewhat sorry state. They actually started fighting. Su Danian was somewhat incredulous. Brother Su, do you think there's a problem with Hall Master Wei? Wu Chuan asked. Su Danian pondered for a moment, then said, There's a problem. Seems like the two of us have the same thought. I also didn't think there was a problem with Hall Master Wei, but his actions just now were too strange. It was simply not like his usual calm self. However, I didn't expect that Deputy Yi Chen would directly confront Hall Master Wei. Perhaps he doesn't want to go through so much trouble. But Hall Master Wei's strength is unfathomable. Yi Chen's actions are a bit impulsive, and might very well injure himself. Let's wait and see. If there's nothing we can do, we'll help Deputy Yi Chen and throw caution to the wind. Su Danian owed his life to Yi Chen, so he was determined to stand on his side. Bang bang bang! Under the night sky, the sky above Azure Dragon Island suddenly flickered with a resplendent radiance. It flickered as if it was daytime, yet also looked like a bizarre world. Yi Chen, in my eyes, you're merely a genius. Perhaps you haven't experienced the immensity of the heavens and the immensity of the earth. Today, I'll let you know that your so-called strength is not worth mentioning. Demonic Bull Mountain Crushing Art. Wei Longtao's cultivation base couldn't be considered very high, only at late sea of Soul Realm. However, he was still a body refining expert. The secret art he cultivated was actually the second layer of the secret pavilion's demonic bull mountain crushing art, a low heaven-grade secret art that could multiply his strength. What a powerful fleshly body! After exchanging blows with Wei Longtao, Yi Chen was endlessly apprehensive. 4 ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts, cultivating to the third step spirit body, was already the limit. However, Wei Longtao's spirit body had actually reached the 4th step. If it wasn't through ordinary tempering, then it had to be due to refining a large amount of spirit energy crystals. It was indeed heaven-defying for Yi Chen to sit firmly on the head of the 5 great halls, even more so than Master Sky Sword. After exchanging blows with Wei Longtao, Yi Chen was endlessly apprehensive. 4 ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts, cultivating to the third step spirit body, was already the limit. However, Wei Longtao's spirit body had actually reached the 4th step. If it wasn't through ordinary tempering, then it had to be due to refining a large amount of spirit energy crystals. This was the first time Yi Chen had seen someone raise their spirit body to the 4th step. No wonder he could sit firmly on the head of the 5 great halls. He was indeed heaven-defying, even stronger than Master Sky Sword. With the strength of demonic bull mountain crushing art on the inside and powerful Zhen Yuan on the outside, Wei Longtao's figure flickered, choosing to engage in close combat with Yi Chen. Boundless palm pressure swept forth. Clang! Unsheathing the Thunder Disaster Sword, Yi Chen welcomed the incoming attack. Chapter 691. Golden Ripple. Yi Chen's first move was one of his 3 great killing moves, Golden Ripple. As his destruction sword intent reached the 5th step, the Golden Ripple was no longer a pure golden color, but an even more tyrannical and destructive dark golden color. With a pop, the dark golden ripple spread out with Yi Chen at the center. Its speed was illusory, like a golden flower blossoming in the void. Clang! Although Wei Longtao's speed was as fast as lightning, he was ultimately not as fast as Yi Chen's reaction. Before he could get within 10 meters, he was forced to clash head-on with the dark golden ripple. How frightening was the dark golden ripple! Wei Longtao's palm energy was immediately shattered. However, Wei Longtao's foundation was his physical body and strength. Therefore, even if his palm energy was shattered, he still had his iron palm. The iron palm bombarded the dark golden ripple, immediately erupting with countless energy sparks. A dazzling shockwave stretched across the sky like a galaxy, incomparably resplendent. Demon Bull Budding Horn. Taking 3 steps back, Wei Longtao charged over once more, punching out with a force as sharp as a bull's horn. Go back! Yi Chen sucked in a deep breath and pushed his destruction sword intent to the peak, causing his location to darken. At the same time, Yi Chen disappeared from the sight of Wei Longtao, Wu Chuan, and Su Danian. It was as if there was a black hole there, and Yi Chen was inside it. Rip! A streak of lightning streaked across, and the black sword light abruptly chopped at Wei Longtao's fist. The sharp wind cut off a lock of hair in front of the latter's forehead. The two didn't retreat even half a step. Instead, they pressed against each other, and purple-black lightning appeared in the void. It was a powerful electric current produced by the friction between energies. Yi Chen can actually fight evenly with Hall leader Wei. Wu Chuan cried out in astonishment. Su Danian was also astonished. He didn't expect Yi Chen's strength to have already reached such a level. No wonder he was called Sword Master. It should be known that Wei Longtao was one of the top experts of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Even the great Elder of Elder Association wouldn't dare say he could defeat him. In a battle a few years ago, Wei Longtao had blasted a Black King Gates Hall leader into pieces with a single punch. With such a huge commotion, it was impossible for the people on Azure Dragon Island not to know. Not long after, thousands of people gathered here. Chun Yusin, Xing Meilian, Lin Songhai, and the others also came. What's going on? Why are Vice Palace Master Yi and Palace Master fighting to the death? Xing Meilian covered her mouth, not daring to believe her eyes. She wasn't an idiot. How could the battle between Yi Chun and Wei Longtao be a spar? Every move and every style was extremely dangerous. Could Hall Master Wei be a spy? Chun Yusin let her imagination run wild. Everyone says that Vice Palace Master Yi is a genius rarely seen in 1,000 years. But now, it seems like it was quite tactful. He can actually fight against Palace Master. Right. Although I don't know why Vice Palace Master Yi and Palace Master are fighting to the death, we simply can't interfere. We can only watch from the sidelines. Everyone discussed spiritedly, sighing at Yi Chen's strength. One was a Vice Palace Master, while the other was a Palace Master. When two experts clashed, one would surely be injured. As for who would have the last laugh, it would depend on their respective methods and trump card. Yi Chen, die for me. His right fist collided with the Thunder Disaster sword. Wei Longtao's back muscles bulged as his left fist carried a tremendous force and punched toward Yi Chen's face. Void-shattering finger. Yi Chen neither retreated nor dodged. His left index finger flickered with a cyan-colored radiance and pierced through the lower part of his right arm, landing on Wei Longtao's iron fist. Pop! The two separated and retreated a few hundred meters. Without another attack, Wei Longtao looked at Yi Chen with apprehension, his eyes squinting into slits. Yi Chen's battle strength was beyond his imagination. Up until now, he had already used 70 to 80% of his strength, but he still couldn't do anything to the other. If it were a hall master of a hostile force, he would have long since killed him with a single punch. Not bad. You can actually block so many of my moves. Wei Longtao gradually relaxed his body. His muscles loosened, and his surging power gradually condensed. He was like a dormant volcano on the verge of eruption, ready to erupt with thousands of years of accumulated energy at any time, destroying everything in front of him. You're also not bad. No wonder you can sit firmly on the position of Azure Dragon Hall Master, even killing the traitor Yao Yifeng with a single punch. Yi Chen didn't plan to use the defensive sword art. Up until now, there was no one worthy of him using it. Of course, he didn't dare to look down on Wei Longtao. Apart from his spirit body reaching the fourth step, the latter's physical strength was no less than 800,000 jin. Back then, Su Jing had said that there was once a sect called Boundless Sect. The sect's supreme elder and sect master both had a physical strength of over 500,000 jin, especially the sect master, whose physical strength was heaven-defying. And this Wei Longtao's physical strength was not below that sect master's. Moreover, he cultivated the heaven-grade low-grade secret art, demonic bull mountain crushing art, which allowed his physical strength to multiply, reaching more than 1,000,000 jin. He was the most frightening opponent Yi Chen had ever encountered. Next, I will go all out. I hope you won't be crippled by me. Wei Longtao's body shook and his clothes were torn to shreds, revealing the exquisite and mighty armor underneath. He clenched his fists and arched his body like a bow. Roar! A blood-red essence chi smoke soared up to the sky. Blood-colored lightning flickered and flickered. A fierce gale swept across the entire Azure Dragon Island. Some towering trees were uprooted and blown into the sky. The lake water on the island surged upward like a waterspout. As for Wei Longtao's location, sand and pebbles were flying everywhere. The sky darkened. Essence Chi beacon materialization. Yi Chen was startled. The blood chi of a body refiner was countless times stronger than that of an ordinary person. Once they went all out, the essence chi could not be locked and would gush out. But unless the spectator was a body refiner, there was no way to see it with the naked eye. But this Wei Longtao's essence qi had already broken through the bindings, and could be seen with the naked eye. One could well imagine how powerful the opponent's blood qi was. Demonic Bull seizes Flood Dragon. Pushing his strength to the limit, Wei Longtao turned into a blood-colored lightning bolt and rushed out of the sand and stones, punching out. Following this punch, Yi Chen discovered that his blood qi was on the verge of collapse, as if it was about to be blown apart. It had to be known that blood qi was the foundation of the body. Without it, the consequences would be unimaginable. The blood qi contained in Wei Longtao's punch was much stronger than Yi Chen's own blood qi. Even from a distance, it was still very uncomfortable. Dragon Bone Materialization. A white layer of dragon bone spread out from the surface of Yi Chen's skin. This thin layer instantly covered Yi Chen's entire body. Even his face could not be seen. It was as if he was wearing a white mask, revealing only his eyes and long hair. With the appearance of the dragon bone defensive layer, Yi Chen's tottering blood qi stabilized, no longer being affected by Wei Longtao's blood qi. Thunder Devour. Materializing the dragon bone was only a matter of a single thought. Yi Chen himself was not idle either. He raised his Thunder Disaster sword high up, and black lightning gathered at its tip, condensing into a fist-sized thunder ball. As soon as the thunder ball appeared, it immediately burst forth with an intense aura of destruction, condensing to the point of being solid. Bang! With a sword strike, the thunder ball turned into a black light beam and shot toward Wei Longtao. Break! Wei Longtao fearlessly collided with the thunder ball. Kacha, kacha, kacha! The thunder ball exploded, turning the surrounding 100 li into a world of thunder and lightning. Forked lightning, snake-shaped lightning, lightning beams, and huge thunderballs shot out in all directions, covering all the spectators. It was as if the end of the world had arrived, and there was no way to escape. Retreat! Su Danian raised his protective Zhen Yuan and roared at everyone. Puff! Although everyone was far away and had fled when the situation turned bad, there were still some who spurted out blood, suffering serious internal injuries. At the center of the thunder explosion, Wei Longtao stood tall without falling. Before the lightning could even approach him, it was dispersed by the intense blood qi around his body. Too powerful. A Sea of Souls realm warrior can really be this powerful. Xing Meiyan and Chen Yusin were dumbstruck. Be it Wei Longtao's strength or Yi Chen's battle strength, both shattered their understanding of Sea of Soul realm. Ordinary Sea of Soul realm masters were like dregs in front of Wei Longtao and Yi Chen, unable to withstand a single blow. With the Thunder Devour, Yi Chen took the initiative to attack. He raised his longsword and slashed upward. Wei Longtao was naturally not afraid of close combat, and he clashed with Yi Chen. Dozens of exchanges passed. Blood-severing Ghost Finger. Yi Chen's reaction and perception were a notch higher than Wei Longtao's, and he suddenly used the blood-severing Ghost Finger he had just learned. Blood-severing Ghost Finger was a 5-star heaven-grade secret art. As soon as it was used, it immediately produced a strange phenomenon. Horror and horror were all concentrated on this finger. You actually cultivated blood-severing Ghost Finger. As if he had seen a ghost, Wei Longtao immediately retreated. He had been to the secret pavilion many times, and had even been to the 3rd floor. He naturally knew of this frightening secret art. Because it was too difficult to cultivate, no one could cultivate it to greater completion. Even Palace Master Dragon King had only cultivated it to minor completion. Moreover, blood-severing Ghost Finger couldn't be exchanged with contribution point. Therefore, Wei Longtao could only read the introduction in the booklet, and couldn't learn it. However, this didn't hinder his apprehension of blood-severing Ghost Finger. It could be said that blood-severing Ghost Finger could restrain body-refining expert. No matter how much blood qi one had, it would be severed by the finger and turned into a ghost. Unfortunately, no matter how fast Wei Longtao escaped, he couldn't be faster than Yi Chen's attack speed. With a slash of his silver hook, Wei Longtao's body seemed to have lost something without a sound. Wei Longtao carefully sensed his body and immediately laughed heartily. So, you've only learned the basics of blood-severing ghost finger. You're still a long way from minor completion. He had lost quite a bit of blood qi, but compared to the total amount of blood qi in his body, it was negligible. He wasn't affected at all. Sure enough, the current blood-severing ghost finger is far from enough to deal with a body-refining expert of Wei Longtao's level. Its effect is very small. Yi Chen didn't want to use blood-severing ghost finger to defeat his opponent, but to test it out. Only against an expert of the same level would it be meaningful. Against ordinary experts, even if he used blood-severing ghost finger to defeat his opponent, he wouldn't know how powerful it was. Chapter 692. Demonic Bull Burst Power. After realizing that the blood-severing ghost finger was no threat to him, Wei Longtao's body shook, and a dense blood qi surged out of his body, condensing into a demonic bull phantom. This demonic bull was emitting a wild power ripple, its muscles twisting, looking down on all living things. Explode! Wei Longtao punched at Yi Chen, the blood qi assaulting his dragon bone defense. What a condensed blood qi! My protective Zhen Yuan has almost been ignored. Yi Chen took 3 steps back, and a small crack appeared on the dragon bone defense. Blood qi was different from Zhen Yuan. It was a special source of power. Therefore, the protective Zhen Yuan could hardly defend against the impact of blood qi, and blood qi could not directly injure the body. It could only shake the foundation of blood qi. If Yi Chen did not have the dragon bone defense on his skin, or if his blood qi was insufficient, his blood qi might be washed away, and in serious cases, it might even collapse. This bone defense can defend against the impact of blood qi? Once was fine, but twice was the same. No matter how stupid Wei Longtao was, he could tell that the dragon bone defensive layer on Yi Chen's skin was not simple. It seemed to contain a special blood qi ripple, which could not only increase one's defense, but also counteract a portion of the blood qi's impact. The remaining blood qi's impact was naturally unable to shake Yi Chen's blood qi's foundation. So what? Watch me blow you up with one punch. Like a crazed killing demon, Wei Longtao's figure flickered as he punched out one after another. Each of his punches contained more than 1,000,000 Jin of strength, possessing a frightening destructive power. Just think about it, when more than 1,000,000 Jin of power was concentrated in a fist and then pushed at dozens of times the speed of sound, how powerful would it be? This was not the same level as a 1,000,000 Jin object charging at dozens of times the speed of sound. The larger the object, the larger the area of destruction. However, the power would be scattered, and the difference between the two would be more than 100 times. Therefore, 1,000,000 Jin of power was not frightening. What was frightening was the instantaneous eruption of this power. Clang! 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 Yi Chen waved his longsword, and circles of dark golden ripples attacked Wei Longtao. Compared to the pure golden ripples, the power of these ripples was much weaker. However, they had the advantage in quantity. No matter how ferocious Wei Longtao's attacks were, they could not advance an inch. Damn it! Wei Longtao was like a boat sailing against the current, unable to do anything to Yi Chen. On the other hand, Yi Chen was at ease, occasionally launching a sneak attack. In close combat, if Yi Chen had only cultivated Zhen Yuan, perhaps he would have lost to Wei Longtao long ago. However, apart from cultivating Zhen Yuan, Yi Chen's physical strength wasn't bad either. It was 400,000 Jin. 400,000 Jin of physical strength combined with Zhen Yuan, destruction sword intent, and profound sword arts didn't lose to Wei Longtao in the slightest. Every time he slashed, he would be able to hit the opponent's weak point, achieving twice the result with half the effort. Therefore, if one didn't fight with Yi Chen, they wouldn't know why Yi Chen was so frightening. His true frightening aspect was that he had no weaknesses, which meant that his enemies couldn't find any. On the other hand, it was precisely because Yi Chen had no weaknesses that his enemy's weaknesses would be magnified in front of him. Wei Longtao's attacks seemed to be very fierce, but they were still somewhat rough and not meticulous enough. When encountering an opponent weaker than him, he would naturally be able to kill them with a single punch. However, when encountering an opponent like Yi Chen who had no weaknesses, he couldn't grasp the overall situation. It was clearly him who took the initiative to attack, but towards the end, he was on the defensive, guarding against Yi Chen's unpredictable sword arts. How is this possible? The more Wei Longtao fought, the more apprehensive he became. His battle power was continuously increasing, and he originally thought that he could suppress Yi Chen and cripple him. However, the situation was the same as before. No, it was still a bit lacking. While he was increasing his battle power, his opponent was also increasing his battle power. Moreover, his opponent could use every bit of his strength appropriately, without any wastage or lack of strength. My strength is 800,000 jin, and my demonic bull mountain crushing art has also been cultivated to the second realm, allowing me to erupt with a strength of 1,400,000 jin. If it were someone else with similar strength, they would have long since been unable to hold on. Why is he able to hold on and even suppress me? Even if Wei Longtao was the Azure Dragon Hall leader with tyrannical strength, he couldn't understand the difference between him and Yi Chen. He felt that his battle power was a bit stronger than the latter. Although Yi Chen's destruction sword intent was powerful, his cultivation base was only at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm, and his spirit body had even reached the fourth step. It should be known that the third step spirit body was already the peak for Sea of Soul Realm expert. The fourth step spirit body was the body of a king, and could contain even more strength. Its pure defense was extremely frightening, and he wouldn't be afraid of the rebound force in a head-on clash. It doesn't matter. With demonic bull mountain crushing art cultivated to the second realm, I can barely use demonic bull mountain crushing fist. This fist can increase my strength to 1,600,000 jin. With an increase of 200,000 jin, I can absolutely crush him. His blood chi surged as Wei Longtao prepared a huge killing move. On the opposite side, Yi Chen was also considering how to defeat Wei Longtao. If Wei Longtao mainly cultivated Zhen Yuan, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. As long as he used Yellow Dragon sealing art at close range, he would be able to restrict the opponent's Zhen Yuan. Unfortunately, Wei Longtao mainly cultivated strength, and Yellow Dragon sealing art couldn't restrict him. Yi Chen didn't have the confidence to use Golden Hurricane, but Wei Longtao definitely had other powerful killing moves. Not to mention, Wei Longtao had a fourth step spirit body, and his defense was ridiculously powerful. Forget it, I've underestimated the strength of peak body refiners. Actually, Yi Chen couldn't be blamed for underestimating Wei Longtao. The main reason was that he hadn't encountered many body refiners. Lin Tian could be considered one, but Yi Chen's strength had risen too quickly, and he had quickly surpassed the other. Therefore, his understanding of body refiners wasn't deep. As for himself, he could only be considered half-baked. Yi Chen, take my fist. Accumulating his strength to the limit, Wei Longtao's body emitted an intense red light, and his entire body seemed like a blood-red sun. Rumble. Taking a step forward, Wei Longtao punched out. His blood chi surged, and the demonic bull's image suddenly shrunk, converging on his right arm. With its head in front and tail in the back, it raised its head and roared. Its eyes were like copper bells. Without any hesitation, the demonic bull's image separated from Wei Longtao's fist and charged toward the nearby Yi Chen with its horns. Hall leader Wei has used a supreme killing move. The spectators in the distance held their breaths, their eyes unblinking. On the opposite side, Yi Chen's blue robes fluttered in the wind, and his long hair fluttered like swords. Because of his grave and stern expression, his eyes were extremely sharp and narrow. The cold light inside seemed to have solidified, as if there was a lump of cold chi that couldn't be concealed. Golden Hurricane! Taking a step forward, Yi Chen held the Thunder Disaster sword with both hands and unleashed a supreme profound sword move with a mountain-splitting force. Huff! A beam of dark golden ripple shot out at the speed of light. The demonic bull's image and the beam of ripple collided. There was no sound, no shockwave. The world seemed to have lost its sound, leaving only a blood-red and dark golden light sphere. Inside the sphere, the demonic bull's image and the dark golden ripple had yet to dissipate. Rumble! With a world-shattering sound, the demonic bull's image exploded with a bang, and the dark golden ripple was reduced to a finger-thick beam. It pierced through the fragments of the demonic bull's image and struck Wei Longtao's chest. Its speed was so fast that the latter didn't even have time to react. It's actually Vice Hall Leader Ye's killing move that's even stronger. The spectators cried out in surprise. Senior brother Yi is going to win. Chen Yusin revealed a happy expression. Compared to Wei Longtao, she was more inclined toward Yi Chen. After all, Yi Chen had already convinced her. Even Hall Leader Wei isn't Yi Chen's opponent. Xing Melian admittedly admired Yi Chen, but Wei Longtao's decades of prestige was too deep-rooted. If it were her, she wouldn't even have the confidence to resist. Seems like we don't have to make a move. Wu Chuan and Su Danian heaved a sigh of relief. Puff! Wei Longtao flew back in shock. Although the armor on his chest was a semi-extreme grade armor, the concentrated energy still made him unable to control his body and blood chi. His ribs creaked as he felt an unbearable pain for the first time. Yi Chen faintly creased his brows. He wasn't as optimistic as the spectators. Sure enough, after flying back a dozen li, Wei Longtao stopped his momentum. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looking completely fine. It was as if he had only suffered a minor injury that didn't affect his condition or battle power. On the contrary, it made his aura even more valiant and frightening. Yi Chen, I have to admit that apart from Great Elder, you're the first Sea of Soul Master I've acknowledged. Unfortunately, this is still not enough, far from enough. My strength is not something you can imagine. This bit of offensive power can't injure me. Wei Longtao's expression turned tranquil. Lightly letting out a breath, Yi Chen sheathed the Thunder Disaster sword and said indifferently, I have no choice but to admit that I've underestimated you. Your strength is higher than any Sea of Soul Master I've encountered. Indeed, this bit of offensive power can't do anything to you. Since you know, then surrender yourself to us. Admit your mistake in front of me, and I might forgive you and give you a dignified ending. Faintly shaking his head, Yi Chen said, No, you don't understand my meaning. I still haven't displayed my true strength, although I really don't want to. What? This wasn't even Deputy Ye's true strength? What kind of joke is this? Yeah. Hall Leader Wei has already gone all out. Only his defense is a bit stronger. Deputy Yi can't do anything to him. Do you think Deputy Yi is just trying to scare Hall Leader Wei? I don't know. The battle between Wei Longtao and Yi Chen could be said to be an intense battle beyond their level. It had already left them dumbstruck, and they didn't even have the qualifications to look up to it. But now Yi Chen was telling them that this wasn't his true strength. They couldn't accept it, feeling that it was too outrageous. Wu Chuan and Su Danian exchanged glances, feeling a bit frightened. As for Chen Yusin and Xing Melian, they were already dumbstruck. Humph! Wei Longtao coldly snorted and sneered. Even now, you still haven't given up. I really don't know whether to call you arrogant or ignorant. Whether I am or not, you'll know very soon. Left with no choice, Yi Chen decided to expose his defensive sword art. Wei Longtao's strength was beyond his imagination, and the extraordinary strength of a body-refining expert was also beyond his expectations. Chapter 693. Make your move. I'll make you feel despair. Wei Longtao was extremely confident in his defense. He simply didn't think that Yi Chen could break through his defense and heavily injure him. Of course, he didn't dare to be careless. His muscles swelled, and every inch of his body contained a terrifying energy, causing his skin to be covered in a layer of blood-colored light. On the other side, Yi Chen was standing several miles away. He didn't draw his sword, nor did he take any stance. However, his gaze gradually sharpened as it locked onto Wei Longtao's aura. As the night wind whistled, the spectators held their breaths as they stared at Yi Chen. They wanted to see Yi Chen's true strength. Kill! 2 beams of cold light flashed through his eyes. Yi Chen pointed out with his right hand, and the gold sword on his back automatically took out of its scabbard. It shot out at a speed that was beyond the soul power's perception. Because of its unbelievably fast speed, everyone's eyes were still focused on Yi Chen, waiting for him to perform his ace attack. Danger! Wei Longtao's scalp went numb. Then, as if he had been electrocuted, the numbness spread from his head to his feet, and then back to his head. This was no longer his consciousness warning him of danger, but his body's instinct. In fact, he didn't even have time to think in this short period of time. Clang! On his chest, magma-like sparks splashed, and the strong smell of iron could not be dispersed even by the wind. In the next moment, Wei Longtao spurted out a large amount of blood and was instantly sent flying dozens of li away like he was riding on a cloud. Along the way, blood flowed out of his eyes, nose, and ears, wriggling like little snakes. Hall leader Wei lost? The spectators were a little dazed. They had been waiting for Yi Chen to make his move. Unfortunately, from start to end, they only saw Yi Chen's right hand move, and Hall leader Wei was sent flying with sparks of magma splashing out from his chest. After a moment of daze, the spectators sucked in a cold breath. A move that could be seen clearly wasn't scary. What was scary was that they couldn't see anything. Return to the sheath. Yi Chen changed his mind, and the gold sword flew back into the scabbard on Yi Chen's back, its sharpness dimmed. This is the sword that defeated Hall head Wei? Only then did everyone understand that Yi Chen's killing move was a flying sword. As for whether or not it was thrown by hand, they were a little confused because they didn't have the time to pay attention at that time. Sword Sex Yi Chen is worthy of his title. Wu Chuan and Su Danian were filled with admiration. When they first learned that Yi Chen was a grandmaster of the sword, they did not take it too seriously. But now, they understood that there was probably no one among the grandmasters of the sword who could be a match for Yi Chen. Yi Chen was the new grandmaster of the sword. Even in the eastern shallow sea, there was not a single grandmaster of the sword who could contend against him. Hall Master Wei, who has shaken the blood battle ocean for decades, has actually been defeated. This Vice Hall Master Yi is truly heaven-defying. I can't believe it. Me too. I thought he was just bragging. However, we still don't know why Hall Master Wei fought with Vice Hall Master Yi. Everyone discussed spiritedly, sighing endlessly. After heavily injuring Wei Longtao, Yi Chen extended his hand, and a powerful suction force pulled the opponent back, causing him to spurt out another mouthful of blood. Wei Longtao, what else do you have to say? Wei Longtao no longer had the strength to fight. He didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. He looked at Yi Chen with resentment. So what if you defeated me? Do you think the elders of Elder Association will believe an outsider like you and forcefully convict me? Yi Chen, today's humiliation will be repaid in the future. I, Wei Longtao, will not rest until you are dead. You should save these words for the elders of Elder Association. As for whom they choose to believe, that's their business. Grabbing Wei Longtao, Yi Chen flew toward the Transfer Palace Hall. This matter was urgent, so he couldn't rush to Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Once Yi Chen left, Chen Yusin and Xing Meiyan looked at each other in dismay. Yi Chen's domineeringness had shaken them. The majestic Azure Dragon Hall Master still couldn't escape the fate of being carried away. Yi Chen was the first, and perhaps the last. Dragon God Celestial Palace, Transfer Palace Hall, carrying Wei Longtao, Yi Chun appeared outside the Transfer Stone Gate. Dragon God Envoy. Inside the Transfer Palace Hall were 4 attendants. Yi Chun said, "Inform all the elders to go to Elder Hall." Yes. Before leaving, the 4 attendants shot a glance at Wei Longtao. Their expressions were a bit strange, but they didn't dare to ask too much. Their figures flickered and they each separated. In Elder Hall, elders rushed over one after another. However, when they saw Wei Longtao being escorted by Yi Chun, they were somewhat dumbstruck. Not to mention how Yi Chun had captured Wei Longtao, just what crime Wei Longtao had committed was extremely puzzling. In a short while, the 3rd elder, 2nd elder, and great elder all arrived. After all, they were the 3 great elders, and their ability to keep their cool was quite profound. Apart from a bit of surprise, they didn't reveal too much of an expression. Clearing his throat, the great elder asked, "Dragon God Envoy, what's going on?" Yi Chun narrated the matter of Yao Yifeng being a spy, and how Wei Longtao had killed him in great detail. Then, he spoke of the reason why he suspected Wei Longtao, without any embellishment. Wei Longtao raised his head and coldly said, "Do you believe me or him?" This. Quite a few elders hesitated. In truth, although Wei Longtao had killed Yao Yifeng a bit impulsively and also a bit strange, he was still the Azure Dragon Hall Lord, a person with great authority and status only below the Great Elder. Capturing him just like that was truly a bit. Some people even thought of themselves. Yi Chun even dared to capture Wei Longtao. If there came a day when he suspected them, would he also capture them without any regard for the rules? Of course, since Yi Chun was the Dragon God Envoy, they couldn't say anything on the surface. Although Elder Hall was the place where decisions were made, and all matters were decided by them, their authority wasn't the greatest. Above them, there were still the left and right protectors who had always been hiding in the shadows. Hall Lord Wei, if you're not guilty, no one will do anything to you. Don't worry. An elder who was on good terms with Wei Longtao comforted him, and quickly glanced at Yi Chun. That's right, Hall Lord Wei, don't be impatient. Vice Hall Lord Yi only suspects you. You were a bit impulsive in killing Yao Yifeng. Elder Yu, who was sitting next to him, transmitted his voice to Yi Chun, "Dragon God Envoy, you were a bit impulsive this time. Wei Longtao is the Azure Dragon Hall Lord after all, and his connections aren't small. Most importantly, there isn't enough evidence. Moreover, I'm sure that many elders will be afraid of you because of this matter and gradually distance themselves from you." A cold smile appeared on Yi Chun's face. Impulsive? I don't think so. If he's a spy, leaving him in the Azure Dragon Hall will only bring endless disasters. As for the Elder Hall members being afraid of me and distancing themselves from me. Haha, Elder Yu, honestly speaking, I'm not that infatuated with authority. I only believe in strength. With sufficient strength, even the heavens can be pierced. Authority is nothing more than fleeting clouds. Just 1 chapter today, and I can barely keep my eyes open. Tomorrow I'll make up for it. Chapter 694. Hearing Yi Chun's words, Elder Yu smiled bitterly. Yi Chun was right. Power was not as important as strength. Unfortunately, knowing was one thing, and doing it was another. Moreover, not everyone was like Yi Chun, who had boundless potential. Their potential had already been exhausted, and they could only rely on the sect to obtain the resources they wanted and continue to slowly increase their strength. Everyone's circumstances are different, and so are their perspectives. It seems like I was too impulsive. Elder Yu thought that Yi Chun was a bit impulsive. However, after hearing Yi Chun's words, he felt that he was overthinking things. For Yi Chun to have his current accomplishments, how could he not know what was important and what was not? He had certainly thought things through. There were 24 elders in Elder Assembly. From Yi Chun's observation, he discovered that there were roughly 7 or 8 people who favored Wei Longtao. Although they had hidden it well, how could they escape Yi Chun's eyes? It was clear how powerful Wei Longtao's connections were. However, Yi Chen didn't care. Even if the Elder Assembly didn't think that Wei Longtao was guilty and could continue as the Azure Dragon Hall leader, it had nothing to do with him. He would only do what he had to do, and the result wouldn't affect him much. Of course, if the other party overestimated their capabilities and retaliated, he wouldn't swallow his anger. Yi Chen, you've done well. At this moment, Second Elder Silver Sword transmitted to Yi Chen. Yi Chen glanced at the Second Elder out of the corner of his eyes. The Second Elder didn't look at Yi Chen and continued, as far as we're concerned, as long as we have sufficient reason to suspect, we don't need proof. If we really needed proof to arrest someone, who knows how long it would take. Therefore, you can be at ease. I, Great Elder and Third Elder all think that you've done the right thing. Since this Wei Longtao is a suspect, we can't let him return to Azure Dragon Hall, nor can we let him leave the palace. However, in order to prevent others from thinking that you're fighting for power, you can't be the Azure Dragon Hall leader. If you have any opinion, you can speak directly. Second Elder is joking. I've never been interested in power. Yi Chen replied. Haha, that's good. You will know who the new Azure Dragon Hall Master is tomorrow. We will do our best to cooperate with you. Second Elder wasn't lying, nor was he afraid of Yi Chen's identity as a Dragon God envoy. He truly felt that Yi Chen's way of doing things was too good. He had helped Great Elder and him solve a huge problem. Catching a thief, catching a thief, catching a thief, catching a couple. But, if they couldn't be caught, wouldn't that mean that the mastermind would be free and unfettered for the rest of his life? Extraordinary times call for extraordinary actions. Currently, Dragon God Celestial Palace was in a crisis, and the best way to deal with spies was to catch all the suspicious ones. Even the Azure Dragon Hall leader was no exception. Cough cough. At this time, the First Elder cleared his throat and asked Wei Longtao, Hall Master Wei, this isn't a question of who to believe. Let me ask you, were you really impulsive when you killed Yao Yifeng back then? Not bad. Wei Longtao nodded coldly. You've always been calm. No matter how calm one is, one can still get angry. Without a doubt, Yao Yifeng made me very angry. Because of him, many brothers of my Dragon God Celestial Palace have died. Alright, if there's no problem, the Azure Dragon Hall leader position is still yours. But, before that, you'll have to undergo a series of investigations. I hope you can understand. Great Elder was, after all, the First Elder. Dealing with this kind of thorny problem was easy for him. From his tone, he didn't side with either Yi Chen or Wei Longtao. On the surface, he was comforting Wei Longtao and didn't reprimand him. However, since he didn't let Wei Longtao go, it was equivalent to giving Yi Chen enough respect. Hearing these words, Wei Longtao's complexion turned unsightly. In the end, he still had to undergo investigations. In other words, Great Elder had chosen to believe Yi Chen. Great Elder, this doesn't seem appropriate. Wei Longtao didn't say anything. Instead, an elder who had a good relationship with Wei Longtao stood out. He was the 8th-ranked Elder Lu. Second Elder said with a frown, Elder Lu, how is it inappropriate? I agree with Great Elder's decision. I also agree. Elder Lu, I know you don't believe that Hall Leader Wei is guilty. We don't believe it either, but an investigation is necessary. Therefore, I agree with Great Elder's decision. Me too. Of the 24 elders, 16 agreed with Great Elder's decision. Even if the remaining 8 wanted to speak up for Wei Longtao, it was meaningless. In the Elders' Council, the minority followed the majority. Smiling bitterly, Elder Lu glanced at Wei Longtao helplessly and took a step back, sighing, since everyone agrees, this Lu will obey. That's right. Investigating Hall Leader Wei isn't targeting him. When the truth comes to light, Hall Leader Wei will still be the Azure Dragon Hall leader. Third Elder said with a beaming smile. Turning his head, Great Elder looked at Yi Chen, Dragon God Envoy, I'll leave the Azure Dragon Hall's matters to you. Tomorrow, we'll send an expert to the Azure Dragon Hall to temporarily take over the hall leader's position. I hope you all can get along well and work together to resist the 4 opposing factions. Don't worry, this is my duty. Yi Chen nodded. Good, you go back first. If there's anything, I'll send someone to inform you. At this time, it was already the second watch period, and the night was as cold as water. Great Elder was clear that the Azure Dragon Hall still had the task of transporting resources, and Yi Chen couldn't be missed. Farewell. Yi Chen glanced at Wei Longtao and left the Elder's hall. Watching Yi Chen's back disappear into the night, Wei Longtao's eyes flashed with a murderous cold light. When Yi Chen returned to Azure Dragon Island, Su Danian and Wu Chuan were both waiting for him. Vice Hall Leader Yi, how is it? Su Danian asked. Yi Chen said, Wei Longtao is under investigation. Tomorrow, someone will come to Azure Dragon Island to temporarily take over the Azure Dragon Hall leader's position. Fortunately, Su Danian and Wu Chuan glanced at each other and let out a sigh of relief. If Wei Longtao continued to be the Azure Dragon Hall leader, the first to feel uncomfortable would definitely be the two of them. After all, they didn't have Yi Chen's strength, nor did they have Yi Chen's confidence. Thirdly, they didn't have enough support. They were just Vice Hall leaders under the jurisdiction of the Azure Dragon Hall. Vice Hall Leader Yi, what about today's resource transportation task? The enemy already knows where we are going and the number of our people. Wu Chuan asked. A cold light flashed in Yi Chen's eyes. Follow the original plan. Azure Spirit Island, a resource island close to the core of Blood Battle Ocean. Because this island had an ordinary upper-grade spirit vein, the natural yuan qi here was terrifyingly dense. Almost every breath here was equivalent to a mortal realm warrior's 15 minutes of breathing. Living here for a long time, one would be immune to all diseases, and the body would be strong. If one gave birth here, the baby would definitely have a good foundation for martial arts. On Azure Spirit Island, the miners were working hard as usual. However, it was hard for outsiders to know that last night, a large group of people had come to Azure Spirit Island and were hiding nearby. You three, don't worry. I've brought 1,500 people from the Sky Eagle cult. Even if we can't take them down, we won't be defeated by them. Once you surround them from the back, killing them will be as easy as killing dogs. The hall leader of the Sky Eagle cult, the hook-nosed middle-aged man, said. I hope so. Whirlwind Gates Wind Hall leader Heilingji said. Alright, there's no time to lose. My water wave sect will go first. Brother Zhou, I'll leave the task of attracting the enemy to you. The green-robed old man waved his hand, and more than 1,000 people of Water Wave sect flew southwest. Farewell! You must succeed. The black-robed man and the Whirlwind Gates Hall leader, Heilingji, headed south and southeast respectively, leaving only the Sky Eagle cult's people behind. Retracting his gaze, the hook-nosed middle-aged man said loudly, Brothers of Wind Hall, it's time to get rich. Half of the enemy's resources and wealth will belong to us, and we'll also get half of the contribution points. This is not something that happens often. It's our luck to run into them. Hall leader, don't worry. Who knows, our Sky Eagle cult might be able to get rid of them and take all the resources and wealth for ourselves. The treacherous fatty beside the hook-nosed middle-aged man said confidently. Right, kill all the enemies and take all the resources for ourselves. According to the usual practice, only 90% of the resources would go to the headquarters, and the remaining 10% would be distributed accordingly. Therefore, everyone's enthusiasm was high, and no one was afraid of death. Even if they couldn't take down the enemy, as long as they could delay them, it would be fine. 1,500 people were not to be trifled with. Even if the enemy had 2,000 people, they wouldn't be able to do anything to them in a short time. Let's go. The hook-nosed middle-aged man revealed a satisfied expression after seeing everyone's high morale. He waved his hand and led the group toward Azure Spirit Island. Soon, everyone arrived 2,000 li south of Azure Spirit Island. Alright, everyone, split into 3 groups and wait. This time, it was different from the past. Previously, ambushes were the main method, but this time, they would kill as soon as they saw the enemy. There was no need for ambushes. Therefore, they only needed to wait for Yi Chen's group to arrive before they started killing. 15 minutes passed. 30 minutes passed. They are here. There are quite a lot of people. A bloodthirsty look flashed through the hook-nosed middle-aged man's eyes. In his sight, there were about 1,100 people rushing toward them. The 3 people in the lead were Yi Chen, Su Danian, and Wu Chuan, the 3 deputy leaders. Haha, since you are here, then don't leave. The hook-nosed middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief. There were only 1,100 enemies, which was 400 less than them. This was a huge advantage. You are wrong. Yi Chen and the other 2 looked calm. Arrogant. You won't even know how you die later. The hook-nosed middle-aged man raised his right hand and was about to give the order. On the other side, Yi Chen also raised his hand and yelled, "All of you, come out!" His voice was mighty, and with the help of Zhen Yuan, it spread out dozens of times faster than the speed of sound. In an instant, it spread out hundreds of li, kill, kill, kill. From the north, east, and west, more than 1,000 people charged over from each direction. The people in the north were dressed in black, and they were from the Black Dragon Hall. The people in the east were dressed in red, and they were from the Red Dragon Hall. The people in the west were dressed in white, and they were from the White Dragon Hall. In addition, the leader of the White Dragon Hall was the White Dragon Hall leader, Mo Feng. Chapter 695. How is this possible? The middle-aged man was dumbstruck, his face aghast. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that he had been ambushed. Up until now, it had always been them ambushing Dragon God Celestial Palace's people. He had never thought that one day they would also be ambushed. Bastard! That guy actually betrayed us and provided false information. As the hall leader of Sky Eagle Cult, he naturally knew that they had spies in Azure Dragon Hall. Therefore, his first thought was that they had been betrayed. Break out with all our strength. 1,500 against 5,000. How could the middle-aged man have any other thoughts? The only thought in his mind was to run away, as many as possible. Hall leader, which direction do we go? The treacherous fatty hurriedly asked in a panic. This way. The middle-aged man chose Yi Chen's direction. The other 3 directions had at least 1,300 people, and the most was 1,500 and 600. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's side only had 1,100 people, a few hundred less. With their strength of 1,500 people, they should have a high chance of breaking through. Charge! Raising his hand, the middle-aged man led his people to the right. He was not stupid enough to fight against Yi Chen head-on. The most important thing at the moment was to escape the encirclement. Kill! Yi Chen stood on the Golden Dragon Chariot, while Su Danian and Wu Chuan stood on the Black Chariot. With the 2 chariots as the arrowhead, more than 1,100 people were like 2 long dragons, advancing side by side, slanting toward the Sky Eagle Cult's troops. When the distance was only 30 li, Yi Chen and the rest took the initiative to launch their attacks. One attack after another ruthlessly fell on the Sky Eagle Cult's troops like a torrential storm. Defend! The Sky Eagle Cult's people joined hands to form a thick Zhen Yuan barrier. This Zhen Yuan barrier contained the power of 1,500 people. Its defense was so strong that even if several half-step kings attacked together, they wouldn't be able to break it. Yi Chen and the rest were, after all, far away. Thus, their attacks were weakened by a lot. They only left a few tiny ripples on the barrier, like the ripples of a drizzle falling on a lake. Vice Palace Leader Su, Vice Palace Leader Wu, they're currently defending with all their might. They don't have the time to attack. The 2 of you will block their path at full speed. We'll suppress them from the left and right. Yi Chen said decisively to Su Danian and Wu Chuan. All right. Su Danian and Wu Chuan led 600 to 700 people and separated from the main force. 2 long dragons, one on the left and one on the right, attacked the Sky Eagle cult's people. It was fine if the other side only defended, but if they wanted to attack, they would definitely withdraw their defense. In that case, a round of attacks would be able to wipe out half of them. Faster, faster! The hook-nosed middle-aged man was anxious. If the other side didn't split up, he could easily escape the encirclement by sacrificing a small portion of his forces. In this situation where he fought and retreated, when the reinforcements from the other 3 forces were no longer a problem, it would be their turn to fiercely counterattack. However, Yi Chen's troops took advantage of the moment when they were defending with all their might to split into 2 groups. One group attacked them to slow them down, while the other group temporarily gave up on attacking and rushed to the front at full speed to block their path. Left side, defend with all your might. The others attack. Amidst the chaos, the hook-nosed middle-aged man didn't lose his cool. He ordered the people on the left side to defend with all their might against Yi Chen, while the people facing Su Danian and Wu Chuan gave up on defending and attacked with all their might. Although the speed of the 1,300 people was a lot slower, it was still majestic and unstoppable. Rumble! Like countless fireworks exploding, hundreds of attacks flew towards Su Danian and Wu Chuan's group. Su Danian and Wu Chuan didn't plan to fight back. Their goal was to stop the Sky Eagle cult's people. Therefore, their first thing to do was not to counterattack, but to stabilize their formation and erect their defense. Bastard! Seeing the round of attacks go to waste, the hook-nosed middle-aged man's heart sank again and again. The enemy had obviously planned ahead and considered all the possible problems. In other words, he was like a fish in a net. No matter how he struggled, it was useless. You guys are ruthless enough. Everyone, listen to my order, split into 13 groups. Staying together, they had high defense and attack power, but they would be easily suppressed. If they were scattered, many people would die instantly. However, judging from the current situation, it would be a fantasy if no one died. If they were scattered, 1 or 2 groups might be able to escape, but if they stayed together, everyone would die. Shwa 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 shwa, like a school of fish in the water, the Sky Eagle cult's people suddenly split into 13 groups, running through any gap they could find. The scene was extremely chaotic. Facing this kind of situation, Yi Chen didn't change at all. Wave after wave of attacks were thrown out, destroying one group after another. As for himself, he directly controlled the Golden Dragon Chariot to attack the hook-nosed middle-aged man's group at the very front. His speed was more than twice as fast as the other party. Swoosh! The wind was biting cold. Yi Chen slashed out with his sword. The black sword chi was like a crack in the void, attacking the crowd from dozens of miles away. Swoosh! A large amount of blood rained down. This sword directly killed more than 100 people. Without any pause, Yi Chen slashed out again. A black thunder ball streaked across the sky. Immediately, the other people on the Golden Dragon Chariot also arrived at the best attacking distance. One after another, they all launched their strongest attacks. The mighty chi surged out like a tidal wave. With one round of attacks, the hook-nosed middle-aged man and his group were completely annihilated. One couldn't blame them for being weak. It could only be said that the Golden Dragon Chariot had gathered the strongest forces: Yi Chen, Chen Yusin, Luo Yunsong, and Xing Meilian. Just Yi Chen alone could fight against half a group. If he couldn't kill the other party, then it would be strange. The other members of the Sky Eagle cult had the same fate as the hook-nosed middle-aged man. Although they had caused trouble for the people of the Azure Dragon Hall, they still couldn't break out of the encirclement. Out of the 13 groups, only 4 were left, with less than 400 people. When the people of the Black Dragon Hall, White Dragon Hall, and Crimson Dragon Hall arrived, the 1,300 people of the Sky Eagle cult had already been annihilated. Of course, it couldn't be said that these three groups didn't play a role. If it weren't for them, the hook-nosed middle-aged man wouldn't have chosen to escape. Instead, he would have split up and fought with Yi Chen's group to the death. In that case, even if Yi Chen's group could kill them all, they would have to pay a big price. Haha, Yi Chen, long time no see. Mo Feng and Yi Chen could be considered to be very close. Yi Chen smiled and said, "Thank you all for coming to help." Deputy Yi, what are you saying? The Sky Eagle cult is our common enemy. This is our duty. The other two hall leaders didn't dare to treat Yi Chen as an ordinary deputy, so they replied politely. Yi Chen said, "If nothing unexpected happens, the number of people from the Water Wave sect, Black King Gate, and Whirlwind Gate won't be small. What awaits us is a tough battle. Who's afraid of who? We're not here for sightseeing. No matter what, we have to kill a bunch of people." The leader of the Crimson Dragon Hall was a bearded man with a rare bandit aura. However, in terms of individual strength, he was on par with the leader of the Black Dragon Hall, second only to the leader of the Azure Dragon Hall, Wei Longtao. The leader of the Black Dragon Hall was a cold middle-aged man with a heavy killing intent. He opened his mouth and said, "Let this place become the nightmare of the four forces." Left Hall leader is right. Let this place become the nightmare of the four forces. A cold light flickered in Mo Feng's eyes as well. 3 hall masters and 1 deputy. The aura of the 4 standing together was simply too powerful, instantly becoming the center of attention. Although Yi Chen had only been a deputy for a short time, his personal accomplishments were simply too frightening. His aura was not below that of the 3 in front of him, and it seemed as if he was the leader. The 4 gathered for a while before separating. Just like before, the Black Dragon Hall, Crimson Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall spread out, staying 100 li away from Yi Chen's group. This distance was neither too far nor too close, just outside the range of Sea of Soul Realm experts' soul power detection. They could quickly rush over to help. They were waiting for the other 3 forces to arrive. The first to arrive were the people of the Whirlwind Gate. Something's wrong. Where are the people of the Sky Eagle cult? The leader of the Yin Wind Hall, He Lungji, creased his brows as his speed involuntarily slowed down. The people of the Sky Eagle cult have already been repelled by us. Seems like you guys will also follow in their footsteps. From afar, Yi Chen's voice was heard. He didn't say that the people of the Sky Eagle cult had been completely annihilated. Instead, he said that they had repelled the enemy to avoid raising their guard. After all, being completely annihilated and repelled were 2 different concepts. Follow in their footsteps? Humph. So what if you've repelled them? This place will become your burial ground. He Lungji didn't doubt him. In his opinion, Yi Chen must have brought a lot of people, perhaps even more than 2,000. After repelling the people of the Sky Eagle cult, their losses were not low either, leaving only 1,100 people. On his side, there were more than 1,600 people. Adding the people of the Black King Gate and Water Wave sect, who were also about to arrive, there was no doubt about it. Kill! With an explanation, He Lungji let out a sigh of relief. With a wave of his hand, he led his people toward Yi Chen's group. Defend with all your strength. Yi Chen didn't prepare to attack. Instead, he organized his people to raise a Zhen Yuan barrier. Boom, 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 boom. A large number of attacks landed on the barrier, forcing Yi Chen's group to retreat several dozen li. Kill. 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 Right at this moment, He Lingji's left, right, and right rear, 3 groups of people charged over. Because the distance between them was only 100 li, and their attention had been diverted by Yi Chen's group, by the time they recovered, it was already too late to escape. You dare lie to me? Are the people of the Sky Eagle cult completely annihilated? He Lungji's anger flared up, his eyes spewing fire. It's too late for you to know. Yi Chen declined to comment. Even if I die, I'll drag you guys down with me. He Lungji knew that he couldn't escape, so he led his people and recklessly charged toward Yi Chen, shortening the distance between them. Counterattack. Yi Chen wasn't afraid of the enemy before, but to prevent them from escaping. That was why he retreated step by step, pulling the enemy into the best ambush spot. Withdrawing the Zhen Yuan barrier, thousands of attacks blasted out. A large number of attacks collided, forming a death zone that extended several dozen li. At this moment, the people of the Black Dragon Hall, Red Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall were already 30 li away. Rumble. The three parties each sent out a round of attack. Immediately, miserable screams resounded. Hundreds of Whirlwind Gates experts died on the spot. After 2 rounds of attacks, the people of the Whirlwind Gate followed the footsteps of the Sky Eagle cult's people, completely annihilated. Haha, great! The Red Dragon Hall leader had never killed so happily before. His eyes were bloodshot, and his killing intent soared. Chapter 696. Deputy Yi is truly a godly person. When Palace Master was here, although the 4 forces didn't dare to press too hard, the overall situation in Blood Battle Ocean was still a notch above Dragon God's Celestial Palace. After Palace Master went into seclusion, our Dragon God's Celestial Palace didn't have a big victory. Occasionally we would turn the tables, but it didn't matter. Yeah, it's only been an hour, and we've already killed more than 2,000 people. This is definitely a big victory. Previously, Yi Chen was only famous in Azure Dragon Hall. The other 3 halls didn't know much about Yi Chen, thinking that it was a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. But now, the experts of the 3 halls were filled with reverence for Yi Chen. In their eyes, Yi Chen wasn't the Azure Dragon Hall leader, but he was even more powerful. Yi Chen, with you here, the situation in Blood Battle Ocean is under our control. Mo Feng sighed endlessly. Who could have expected that a single Yi Chen could flip the situation in Blood Battle Ocean upside down? If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he would have doubted it. I only have some special abilities. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts could only cover 100 li, while Yi Chen could cover 500 li. This was a huge advantage that couldn't be crossed. If he didn't have soul power, Yi Chen wouldn't be able to take the initiative and toy with the enemy. Special abilities are also a part of your strength. You're more suited for battle than us, the Black Dragon Hall leader said. Yi Chen faintly smiled, not saying anything. Black King Gate and Water Wave Sex experts had better luck. En route, they bumped into each other. Their numbers reached more than 3,000, and they were majestically rushing over. What welcomed them were 5,000 people, an increase of 2,000. Retreat. The black-robed leader's expression changed drastically as he roared. Chase. With a wave of his hand, Yi Chen and the other 3 palaces converged and chased after them. The reason why they did not surround them was because they did not have enough people. Normally, it would only make sense to surround them if they had 3 times more people than the enemies. Otherwise, it would give the enemies a chance to take them out one by one. After all, this was not a normal army, but an army made up of astral-reaching realm warriors and above. Both sides, one in front and one behind, madly chased after each other. However, in terms of average strength, Dragon God's Celestial Palace was undoubtedly superior to the other 4 forces. Their overall speed was much higher. Roughly 2 hours later, the distance between the 2 sides had shrunk to 30 li, reaching the optimal attacking distance. Without the need for Yi Chen's order, everyone unleashed their ultimate moves, attacking the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect. Rumble. The experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect had no choice but to join hands to set up a defense. But as a result, their speed gradually slowed down, and it became even more difficult to get rid of Yi Chen and the rest. 5,000 people launched a joint attack, shaking the enemy camp's Zhen Yuan barrier to the point where it was on the verge of collapse. Ripples spread out in all directions, and from time to time, there would be people spitting out blood as they were injured. Elder Zhao, what should we do? The black-robed leader of Black King Gate looked at the green-robed leader of Waterwave sect. The green-robed old man's face was extremely unsightly as he said word by word, "If this goes on, our casualties will only increase. Once it accumulates to a certain extent, we won't even have the qualifications to fight to the death with them. At present, the best method is to counterattack and fight to the death with them." Can we fight? Even if we can't, we still have to fight. Our numbers aren't small, 3,200 people, while the other side has 5,000. It's not like we don't have the power to fight. Alright, let's fight. The black-robed man was not an indecisive person. Being forced into desperate straits, a cruel glint flickered in his eyes, as if he had turned from a human into a ferocious beast. All-out counterattack. Finally, the experts of Black King Gate and Waterwave sect no longer blindly fled. Instead, they turned around, preparing to fight to the death with Yi Chen and the rest. Kill. There was no need for words between the two sides. The moment they met, they would kill. Thousands of attacks blasted together, turning the area between the two sides into a starry river of death. Anyone who entered would instantly be blasted into dregs, leaving not even bones behind. At this moment, individual battle strength was no longer important. Even Yi Chen couldn't contend against thousands of people. The moment he was alone, he would be killed in an instant. Of course, if he wholeheartedly wanted to escape, no matter how many people there were, they wouldn't be able to stop Yi Chen. Using the defensive sword art, Yi Chen's speed was already not inferior to the attack speed of ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts. He could completely shake off the attack. Pung 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 pung. The battle of thousands of people was too spectacular, too frightening. Both sides no longer had any other thoughts. The only thought on their minds was to use their best move. As for anything else, they couldn't be bothered to think about it. This battle lasted for an hour. Finally, the experts of Black King Gate and Waterwave sect began to show signs of decline. The reason they were able to resist until now was because the attacks of Yi Chen and the rest were too concentrated. A lot of them were wasted. After all, Zhen Yuan could be fused together for a short period of time, but killing moves and the like were very hard to fuse. The moment they came into contact, they would cancel each other out, turning into pure Zhen Yuan. However, an advantage was an advantage. As time passed, Yi Chen's side maintained their peak condition. On the other hand, the other side, due to going all out, started to show signs of exhaustion. This was especially true for the astral-reaching experts. Because they had swallowed a large amount of pellets, the purity of their Zhen Yuan kept dropping, greatly reducing their attack power. On the other hand, on Yi Chen's side, the frequency of their astral-reaching experts taking pellets was less than half of the other side. After all, they had the advantage in numbers, so they didn't need to put in so much effort. Rumble. Another quarter of an hour passed, and the experts of Black King Gate and Waterwave sect could no longer maintain the situation. A gap was blasted open on the left side, and hundreds of people turned into a part of the Zhen Yuan, turning into ashes. Only bits and pieces of storage rings were left behind, falling into the ocean. Everyone, hold on. Killing one is breaking even, killing two is killing one. The green-robed old man attacked while boosting the morale. Hall leader is right. Since we're all going to die, we might as well drag one down with us. Without a doubt, desperate situations could make people go crazy and hysterical. This kind of hysteria in an army composed of ordinary people would only be a bad thing. However, in a sect war, it could often erupt with frightening might. Even the weakest among them was early astral-reaching realm. Their potential was far greater than ordinary people. In a state of selflessness, they could even burn their life force. Swoosh. The attacks were concentrated on purpose. Yi Chen's side also lost dozens of people. Of course, they were already prepared. Their numbers reached several thousand, so it would be impossible for them not to lose one person. If both sides had 10 times more people, with each side having several tens of thousands of people, Yi Chen would at most have the confidence to defeat the other side, but it would be impossible for him to completely annihilate the other side. This was the unknown brought by quantity. Unfortunately, the eruption of potential had a limit, and it couldn't be continued forever. Moreover, Yi Chen's side didn't dare to be negligent. Each and every one of them had their nerves stretched to the limit. Their offensive power increased by 100 feet, once again suppressing the other side and increasing the number of kills to 700. As their numbers decreased, it was like a vicious cycle. The number of casualties kept increasing, and the more casualties there were, the more they couldn't hold on. It was like a rolling snowball, getting bigger and bigger, becoming more and more ridiculous. They were only a step away from being completely routed. We can't hold on any longer. Find an opportunity and run. The green-robed old man knew that the defeat was already decided, so he transmitted to the black-robed leader of Black King Gate. I know. The black-robed man gritted his teeth. When the casualties of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect reached 2,000, dozens of figures suddenly separated from the group and flew towards the back. The two leading them were the green-robed old man and the black-robed man. You guys continue the attack, I'll chase. Yi Chen soared into the sky, and 5 sword lights appeared around his body. The sword lights were different from before, and they seemed to be moving backwards. With a swish, Yi Chen turned into a cyan sword light and disappeared in a flash. Haha, how can I be left out? The leader of the Red Dragon Hall led a dozen people and chased after Yi Chen. Soon after, the leader of the Black Dragon Hall and the leader of the White Dragon Hall, Emofeng, also led a dozen people and soared into the sky. It didn't matter if they stayed or not. If 4,000 people couldn't even take down 1,000 enemies, then they might as well just smash their heads against the wall. In fact, the situation was even better than they had imagined. Seeing that their hall leaders had escaped, how could the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect still have the mood to fight? They all scattered in all directions, thinking that they would have a chance to escape in the chaos. However, doing so would only make them die faster. A random wave of attacks would be enough to annihilate them one by one. Brother Sun, let's split up. The green-robed old man and the black-robed man split into 2 groups and fled. Yi Chen, who was chasing after them, gave up on the black-robed man and chased after the green-robed old man alone. The leader of the White Dragon Hall, Emofeng, was afraid that something might happen to Yi Chen, so he also chased after the green-robed old man. As for the leaders of the Black Dragon Hall and the Red Dragon Hall, they chased after the black-robed man together. Although the sword light flying art was not as fast as the Imperial sword flying art, it was Yi Chen's special ability after all. With a flicker, he could cover several li. Soon, the distance between him and the green-robed old man was less than 50 li. Kid, you're courting death. The green-robed old man's eyes flickered with a green light. He suddenly turned around and led 20 people toward Yi Chen. He didn't believe that Yi Chen alone could fight against 20 of them. It should be known that his strength was also very high, and he was absolutely a hall leader level expert. Even if he was alone, he might not be afraid of Yi Chen. 20 people charged forward aggressively like tigers and wolves. The distance between the two sides continued to shrink. 50 li, 40 li, 35 li, not good. Mo Feng's complexion changed as he hurriedly yelled to the people behind him, "Hurry up and support Deputy Yi." Yes. The people Mo Feng brought were all great experts with late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Each of them had experienced hundreds of battles and could hold their own. Seeing that Yi Chen was in danger, they secretly increased their speed, surpassing their own limit. Facing 20 people, Yi Chen was not afraid at all. Holding the Thunder Disaster sword in his right hand, he raised it high above his head. The tip of the sword emitted a dark golden radiance. Go to hell. When the distance between them was only 30 li, the green-robed old man and the 20 people beside him simultaneously roused their Jin Yuan, preparing to unleash their ace attacks. Unfortunately, even though they were fast, Yi Chen was even faster. Gold ripple. The thunder disaster sword descended, and a dark golden ripple light beam shot out. Wherever it went, the sky darkened, and a dark golden trace streaked across. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. Without any suspense, the 20 people, including the green-robed old man, were turned into ashes by this sword attack. Upper-grade artifacts and storage rings flew everywhere, flickering with light. At this point, this operation was nearing completion. Under the leadership of Yi Chen, the total losses of the 4 opposing forces had reached a frightening level. Moreover, Yi Chen's battle record was also at a frightening level. In the history of the Dragon God's Celestial Palace, perhaps no one could compete with him in battle record. Chapter 697. Mo Feng had long since known that Yi Chen's strength was at the inhuman level. He had sparred with Yi Chen many times in South Rudra region. However, he didn't expect that Yi Chen had already reached the level where he could instantly kill dozens of people. It should be known that his opponents were not ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts, but late Sea of Soul Realm experts, especially the green-robed old man. As the leader of Water Wave sect, his strength could only be higher than Mo Feng's. However, in front of Yi Chen, he was no different from an ordinary Sea of Soul Realm expert. I'm afraid this guy is only one step away from half-step King Realm, Mo Feng said inwardly. In terms of profound will and battle experience, half-step kings were not much more powerful than peak masters. Their strength lay in their Zhen Yuan. Life and Death Realm Zhen Yuan was called King Zhen Yuan, while half-step King Zhen Yuan was called half-step King Zhen Yuan. Half-step King Zhen Yuan was no longer a liquid Zhen Yuan, but a solid one. It could easily condense into a Zhen Yuan crystal. Even if this Zhen Yuan crystal lost control, it wouldn't dissipate, and would continue to exist. Most importantly, Zhen Yuan crystals could be provided to others for cultivation, and were classified as half-step extreme-grade energy crystals. It was said that King Zhen Yuan could even condense into all kinds of gems, diamonds, and even some special crystals. Moreover, the hardness of the things condensed by King Zhen Yuan was far beyond ordinary. For example, a Zhen Yuan gem was at least 10 times harder than a gem of the same grade. Putting away the storage ring and some damaged upper-grade artifacts, Yi Chen turned around and said, "Big brother Mo, you go back and take charge of the situation. I'll go check out the situation on the other side." The leader of Black King sect was not much weaker than the leaders of Red Dragon Hall and Black Dragon Hall. If he had some life-saving secret arts, he might be able to escape from the hands of the two. Yi Chen had to go and take a look. "All right, I don't think I'll be needed." Mo Feng shook his head with a bitter smile and led his people back the way they came. Waiting until Mo Feng and the others were far away, the gold sword on Yi Chen's back automatically took out of its scabbard, turning into a beam of gold light that appeared right in front of him. Stepping on it, Yi Chen pushed his Zhen Yuan and soul power. Shoo! The gold sword carried Yi Chen and shot out with dozens of times the speed of sound, leaving a clear sword mark in the air that did not disappear for a long time. "Haha, just the two of you want to keep me here?" The black-robed man was fighting the Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master alone. Although he was at an absolute disadvantage, he was still undefeated. It wasn't because he was stronger than the other two. In fact, the three of them were about the same. However, the black-robed man had an extremely powerful water ultimacy defensive martial art. This defensive martial art was like a ball of pale green water that wrapped around the black-robed man. When the attacks of the Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master landed on it, they were either weakened or deflected. They only had 30 to 40% of their power left. "This guy is so powerful. Watch my Scarlet Python Silk Palm." The Red Dragon Hall Master was a hot-tempered man. After attacking for a long time without success, his eyes opened wide like two bronze bells. With a roar, he threw out a palm attack. 4 to 46 flame pythons coiled around the black-robed man's body, strangling him. Break! The black-robed old man's face turned red as he threw out a palm attack, shattering 9 flame pythons in an instant. Extermination space, shattering cut. The Black Dragon Hall Master's weapon was a semi-extreme grade black blade. As he waved it out, a blade light with extermination chi slashed at the green water around the black-robed man's body. Although the blade did not cut through the green water, it still left a gap. Ha ha! The Crimson Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master had a tacit understanding. The moment the saber beam slashed a hole in the green wave, they immediately controlled a flaming python to enter. However, the black-robed man was no pushover either. The green wave condensed into a solid state, trapping the flaming python inside and preventing it from entering. Unfortunately, the Red Dragon Hall Master's goal had been achieved. Explode! The Red Dragon Hall Master roared, and the flame python immediately exploded, blowing up the green water and splashing water everywhere. Half of the black-robed man's body was scorched black, and he had suffered serious internal injuries. The 2 of you will die in my hands one day. The black-robed man groaned as blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and his hair was disheveled. Let's talk about that after you leave this place alive. As the Red Dragon Hall Master spoke, the 6 flame pythons around the black-robed man also exploded. The surging flames collided and formed a huge flaming mushroom cloud. Water transformation, escape. At this moment, the black-robed man's figure turned into a green stream, escaping into the distance. His speed was so fast that it left no trace. Not good. The Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master's expressions changed as they chased after him. The black-robed man seemed to have used a secret art that overdrafted his potential. His speed became faster and faster, leaving the 2 dozens of li behind. It looked like they would not be able to catch up. Abruptly, rip! A black sword light flickered, and the green stream was cut in 2. The black-robed man did not even have the time to let out a scream before he was dismembered. The one who killed the black-robed man was none other than Yi Chen. He had sensed the black-robed man from several hundred li away. Switching from imperial sword flight to sword light flight art, he charged at the black-robed man at his highest speed and slashed at close range. Deputy Yi. The Red Dragon Hall Master heaved a sigh of relief. Are you 2 all right? The Red Dragon Hall Master smiled and said, What could happen to us? But I didn't expect this guy to have so many life-saving methods. First, it was the green water wave, then the super-powerful water escape art. Although the black-robed man's battle strength was comparable to the 2, it would be difficult for the 2 to take him down even if they joined hands. Thinking about it, it made sense. Under normal circumstances, if one wanted to kill an expert of the same level, unless the opponent did not run away, it would require 3 people to have a chance. Not everyone was as all-round as Yi Chen. By the time the 3 returned to the battlefield, the battle had already ended. The troops of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect had been completely annihilated, while Dragon God Celestial Palace's side had lost more than 200 people. In this battle, the 4 opposing forces had lost 6,000 troops. It had to be said that it was extremely bitter, and they would probably not be able to recover for a long time. After returning to the Azure Dragon Hall, this great news spread at an astonishing speed, and Yi Chen once again became the focal point. Many people called Yi Chen the war god of Dragon God Celestial Palace. With him, the army of Dragon God Celestial Palace would be invincible. Yi Chen had made such a huge contribution, so the rewards were naturally not lacking. Although most of the rewards were useless to him, Yi Chen had Yi family and Sky Cloud Sect. The more rewards, the better. After all, although his status was high, Dragon God Celestial Palace was not founded by him. He could at most take some things that were useful to him. He couldn't very well use his position to take away a large amount of resources for Yi family and Sky Cloud Sect. Apart from the rewards, Dragon God's Celestial Palace also awarded Yi Chen a Dragon God Medal. This medal was the highest honor of an individual in Dragon God's Celestial Palace. It was also a special artifact that could store a large amount of Zhen Yuan, roughly equivalent to a third of Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan. It was absolutely priceless. As for the others, apart from the rewards, they also received a medal. For example, Lin Songhai, Chen Yusin, and Luo Yunsong, as disciples of Dragon God's Celestial Palace, each received an Iron Blood Medal, which was ranked third. The other 3 Hall Masters received Battle Dragon Medal, which was similar to the Iron Blood Medal. In short, the number of medals awarded this time was much more than in the past 10 years, because the achievements of the past 10 years couldn't compare to this one. Time flew by in a leisurely manner. On the boundless blood battle ocean, the flames of war could be seen everywhere. The battle had already entered its final stage. Dark Devour. Beside Yi Chen, a purple-robed masked woman formed a seal with both hands. Her movements were so fast that it was dazzling to the eyes. Outside her body, waves of deep dark power rippled out. Pop! Near the enemy's leader, a collapsing and rotating dark sphere appeared. This dark sphere was like a black hole, emitting a frightening gravitational force. It immediately swallowed this powerful enemy, leaving no bones behind. Soon after, the dark sphere swelled a few times and twisted, seeming as if it was about to collapse. Then, the storage ring and the upper-grade artifact were spat out. Powerful! Yi Chen praised. He could tell that this dark devourer of Murong Qingqing was created by imitating a black hole. It had a devouring effect, and would only dissipate after devouring a sufficient amount of mass. In other words, one couldn't avoid this killer move without paying a price. If one didn't have enough strength, they would only be devoured. The structure is still not too stable, unless I can see a real black hole. Murong Qingqing blinked her eyes, somewhat dissatisfied. You can't become fat in one bite. Although we can't go to the starry sky, True Spirit Continent has some dangers similar to black holes. If there's an opportunity, we'll certainly see it. Time passed by in a flash. Half a month ago, Murong Qingqing finally created her own dark profound martial skill, Dark Devour. Although this profound martial skill had yet to be perfected, its lethality wasn't weak. Even against experts of the same level, it would have a certain effect. Therefore, Murong Qingqing temporarily put aside her bitter cultivation and came to Dragon God's Celestial Palace. She had long since known that Yi Chen and Su Jing had a tacit understanding. This time, she had come to see Su Jing. Unfortunately, Su Jing had been in seclusion for many years, and no one knew what her seclusion signified. In short, Murong Qingqing subconsciously believed that Su Jing was her greatest rival. Although she didn't really reject Su Jing, she always had a sense of crisis, and couldn't act as if nothing had happened. In this 1 year, Yi Chen had experienced dozens of battles, big and small. Every battle ended with victory. In these battles, the 4 opposing forces were on guard and began to be cautious. Therefore, although victory belonged to Yi Chen, the number of times he was completely annihilated was few and far between. The situation in Blood Battle Ocean had also gradually stabilized, with both sides restraining themselves and no longer acting unscrupulously. After such a long period of battle, Yi Chen felt somewhat bored. He had already thought of resigning from his position and returning to the continent. The current leader of Azure Dragon Hall was none other than the 18th Elder of the Elders Association, Elder Yu. He had been temporarily acting as the leader for more than a year. Although his strength was inferior to Wei Longtao's, and even inferior to the leaders of Black Dragon Hall, Red Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall, he wasn't weak either. He had a very close relationship with Yi Chen. The battles were simply too easy, and the enemies simply couldn't raise any waves. Murong Qingqing said, "During your absence, the continent has experienced a storm. Right now, although the first rank is still yours, the following ranks have been occupied by other geniuses. Duguju is ranked 2nd, Dan Tai Mingwei is ranked 3rd, Bai Wuxue is 4th, Yan Fengfeng is 5th, Lu Xiaoyu is 8th, and Xia Hozuan is 9th. Sidu Hao, who exchanged the defensive sword art with you, is full of momentum, surpassing Godly Shark Princess and Xiao Chuha, who are not active on the continent. Bai Minghui is ranked 16th, and Chu Zhongtian is ranked 18th. Moreover, Duguju had once defeated an old monster who was equally famous as Sky Sword Master, Nirvana Blade Master. The change is indeed great. Yi Chen didn't feel surprised. For the older generation masters, a year's time couldn't make much progress. However, for the peak geniuses, it was the time for them to advance by leaps and bounds. He didn't doubt that he wouldn't be able to keep his first rank in the ranking. The competition was too intense. Chapter 698. As time passed, the frequency of battles in Blood Battle Ocean became lower and lower. In the past, there would be at least a dozen battles in a month. Now, one battle a month was already not bad. Both sides seemed to have reached a tacit understanding. When one side was transporting resources, the other side wouldn't ambush the other, and when the other side was transporting resources, the other side wouldn't ambush the other. Otherwise, they would have to fight for their lives. Clearly, neither side had made any preparations. Dragon God Celestial Palace was uncertain because Dragon King hadn't come out of seclusion. The 4 opposing forces were also apprehensive of Dragon King, afraid of going too far. Once Dragon King came out of seclusion, they would inevitably seek justice. Without battles, Yi Chen naturally didn't intend to stay. He had come to Dragon God Celestial Palace precisely to redeem the situation, and he had already accomplished more than he could. On this day, Yi Chen arrived at the headquarters of Dragon God Celestial Palace and resigned from the position of Azure Dragon Hall Deputy. Although the Elders of Elders Association were reluctant, they knew that they couldn't force him to stay. Moreover, Blood Battle Ocean was currently peaceful. Keeping Yi Chen here would only be a waste of time. Let's go. Inside the hall, Yi Chen and Murong Qinqing entered the conveyor gate. South Rudra Sect, Conveyor Chamber Buzz. 2 figures walked out of the conveyor gate. Yi Chen. Long Bai was waiting outside the conveyor gate. Upon seeing Yi Chen, her face revealed a faint smile. Sect Leader Long. Yi Chen cupped his fist. This time, it's all thanks to you. I didn't expect that you alone could reverse the situation in Blood Battle Ocean. Long Bai was in a good mood. It was no wonder that Yi Chen had resolved the crisis of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Back then, when Yi Chen had gone, she had never thought that Yi Chen would help Dragon God Celestial Palace suppress the 4 opposing forces. As long as they could maintain the situation, it would be fine. It could be said that Yi Chen's performance had far exceeded her expectations, frightening her. Yi Chen said, "To help Dragon God Celestial Palace overcome this crisis, Yi Chen is very honored. Sect Leader Long, don't regard me as an outsider. Moreover, I'm also a member of Dragon God Celestial Palace." That's true. Long Bai smiled. Although Yi Chen had resigned from his position as the Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master, he was still the esteemed Dragon God Envoy. After chatting with Long Bai for a while, Yi Chen and Murong Qinqing returned to the Yi clan. In the past year, Yi Chen had come back 3 times. With the teleportation gate, it was very convenient. If it weren't for the fact that teleportation consumed a lot of top-grade spirit stones, Yi Chen could have come back once a day. After fighting for more than a year, Yi Chen was also a little tired. In the following week, he did not cultivate, nor did he think too much about things. Every day, he lived a leisurely life, chatting with his parents, playing with his younger brother and sister, or spending time with Murong Qinqing. During this period of time, Yi Chen had gone through the most important baptism of his life. One night, Yi Chen and Murong Qinqing joined together. That night, the 2 tossed and turned until the next morning. Murong Qinqing's body was extremely perfect, smooth like silk, tall and slender, neither too thin nor too voluptuous. Due to the two's sea of soul realm cultivation base, their endurance was astonishing. A night of absurdity had instead left them in high spirit. Vaguely, the two's temperament had somewhat changed. At least, on the next day, when Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing saw Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing, they faintly smiled, as if they knew something. Yi Chen was already 27 years old. This was the first time he had lost his virginity, so he was always a bit impulsive. Whenever he had the chance, he would make love to Murong Qingqing. Moreover, Murong Qingqing's charm was really huge. Due to the fact that she trained demon power, her demon body gave people a noble and alluring feeling, as if she was a combination of angel and demon. On the bed, Murong Qingqing was very proactive, which was completely different from her usual calmness. All in all, in this short period of time, the two enjoyed a life that could only be envied by lovebirds, and were extremely grateful. The morning air was fresh and moist, and the chirping of birds could be heard from outside. Opening his eyes, Yi Chen looked at Murong Qingqing lying beside him, and revealed a trace of a smile. In his sight, Murong Qingqing's jade-like body was lying horizontally, only covered by a thin piece of silk. Her stunning curves could not be covered at all. Her perky buttocks were half covered, revealing a snow-white bulge. Her chest had an exaggerated curve, seeming to be even fuller than before. Under the silk, 2 protruding points could be seen. How many times did we do it yesterday? It should be 5 times. With a bitter smile, Yi Chen got off the bed naked and went to the bathroom to wash his body. After washing up, Murong Qingqing had already woken up. She stretched, and the silk on her body immediately slid down. Little vixen! Yi Chen walked over and kissed her. Murong Qingqing blinked her eyes, enjoying the kiss. After tossing and turning for a long time, Yi Chen finally walked out of the bedroom and arrived at the courtyard. This courtyard was one of the most luxurious courtyards of the Yi family. There was a forest, a lake, a garden, and even a rock garden, as well as a pavilion. It was like a small paradise. Sucking in a deep breath, Yi Chen arrived before the lake with his long sword. Chop! Grabbing the air with both hands, Yi Chen chopped down. Whoosh! The air surged, and a straight mark appeared on the lake. Strange. My Zhen Yuan seems to have grown a lot. I'm about to break through to late sea of soul realm. Yi Chen could feel the surging Zhen Yuan in his body like a torrential river. It was endless and filled with a kind of tension. Without thinking too much, Yi Chen calmed his mind and gradually entered a state of cultivation. Currently, other than the void-shattering finger, the golden ripple, the sword control art, and the blood-severing ghost finger, all of his other martial arts had long reached perfection. As for void-shattering finger, Yi Chen had already reached 90% completion more than a year ago. Although perfection was not that easy to reach, Yi Chen had a feeling that as long as there was an opportunity, he would be able to reach greater completion and reach 100% completion. On the other hand, the gold ripple was much more difficult. This was a high-rank profound martial art. After more than a year of bitter training and tempering, he had only managed to raise it from 30 to 40% to 40 to 50%. However, this was already very terrifying. In terms of power, it was close to the defensive sword technique and was not much weaker than it. Yi Chen had always believed that exchanging the defensive sword art with Sidu Hao was his greatest harvest. Currently, the defensive sword art was still at the peak of the second layer. However, be it speed or offense, it was not second place. It was definitely a killer move. Sidu Hao being able to shine so brightly on the master's list was unknown to Yi Chen, but it was not important. Even if the latter were to be ranked second or even push him down, Yi Chen would not regret it. The latter was able to surpass him because of his talent. Without talent, even if the best resources were given to him, he would not be able to achieve much. At most, he would only be able to become a rare expert. Since the defensive sword art was powerful enough, Yi Chen would not look down on the blood-severing ghost finger. This finger art was too strange. As soon as the finger slashed out, a strange scene appeared. The white-robed departed soul's figure became increasingly clear. Once Yi Chen even saw it smiling at him. He didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, because it was too real. It was hard to tell the difference. Perhaps Dragon King knew what was going on, but he was in seclusion. The peak of the second layer of the defensive sword art has stabilized enough. Now I can attempt the third layer. The third realm would allow him to create Zhen Yuan flying sword. With his soul power and sword intent, the power of one Zhen Yuan flying sword would be able to instantly kill a top master level warrior. If he were to use 100 or even 1,000 swords at the same time, its power would be unimaginable. Of course, in the history, the highest power of Sea of Souls realm sword artists was 72 swords at the same time. Legend had it that someone had reached 81 swords at the same time, but no one knew if it was true or not. Southern Sector, Golden Sand Region. In a super luxurious restaurant, Chu Zhongtian and the geniuses of Golden Sand Region were drinking. Sitting next to Chu Zhongtian was his junior sister, Rakshasa. She had purple hair and purple eyes, looking extremely enchanting. She had a fiery figure and a bewitching appearance. Brother Chu, you are now the most famous figure in our southern sector. Allow me to offer you a toast. Clearly, the geniuses of Golden Sand Region all looked up to Chu Zhongtian. After all, Chu Zhongtian used to be a tycoon of southern sector. And now, Chu Zhongtian was already an expert of the master's ranking, ranked within the top 20. This glory was enough to shock the entire southern sector. Although Edict Prince and Thunder Princess were still dazzling, they paled in comparison to Chu Zhongtian. Because of his relationship with Chu Zhongtian's sect could be said to be unparalleled in the southern sector. There were many youngsters who joined the sect. No matter what, a 5th-grade sect was still a 5th-grade sect. It was a king sect, not something small sects could compare with. Chu Zhongtian's expression was indifferent, without any pretense. However, everyone was used to this side of Chu Zhongtian. If Chu Zhongtian spoke in a pleasant manner, it would be surprising. Eldest brother, let me pour you some wine. Rakshasa's name was Zhou Meiting, and she was Chu Zhongtian's second junior sister. The two had always had an ambiguous relationship. However, Zhou Meiting always thought that Chu Zhongtian was too tyrannical, changing women like changing clothes. Therefore, she didn't expose their relationship. However, as Chu Zhongtian established himself in the Sky Martial region, Zhou Meiting started to feel a sense of crisis. She took the initiative to maintain the relationship between the two. She believed that she would be able to tie down Chu Zhongtian's heart. Brother Chu, you are only at mid-Sea of Soul realm right now, but you are already ranked within the top 20. Once you reach late Sea of Soul realm, you will be invincible within the same generation. Brother Sun is right. Everyone praised Chu Zhongtian. Chu Zhongtian took over the wine cup from Zhou Meiting and drank it all, then said lightly, I have confidence in the others, but there is still Yi Chen in the southern sector. After all these years, Chu Zhongtian had met a lot of horrifying martial geniuses, such as the top 5 young warriors, the 2 top martial geniuses, Situ Hao and Baiming Hui. None of them were ordinary people. However, there was an image in Chu Zhongtian's mind. Behind those martial geniuses there was a huge shadow. It was so huge that it almost covered up the whole sky, covering all of the martial geniuses in its shadow. No one could see his face clearly, only that sharp sword chi-like eyes. Splitting the true essence flying swords required a great deal of concentration, and Yi Chen's body began to sweat. Days passed by. Yi Chen was either cultivating or spending time with Murong Qingcheng. He had plenty of time. One day, a deacon from the pavilion of Luoyang City brought news. It turned out to be a letter from Yan Fengfeng, asking them to meet up in the Sky Martial region. Because of the long journey, She had given the letter to the #1 information organization in the world, the Knowledge Pavilion, which had stores all over the continent, making it very convenient. After reading the letter, Yi Chen said to Murong Qingqing, "It has been a long time since I went to the Sky Martial region. Let's go tomorrow." For most of the martial geniuses, the Sky Martial region was a holy land. But, for Yi Chen, it did not have any special meaning. The higher he stood, the more indifferent he would feel. The journey was long, so there was no need to travel by himself. So, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing got on the flying puppet and flew at 10 times the speed of sound toward the Sky Martial region. In this world, normal people did not have much to do, going out early and returning late every day to make a living for their families. There were also rich young men who indulged in sensual pleasures. Along the way, Yi Chen did not let the flying puppet fly too high. They flew past one city after another, seeing a very familiar scene. If he did not have his soul traveling over and was still in that world, his life would probably be one of the people down there. But now, he did not have to worry about his life anymore. All he wanted was to reach the peak of the sword art and explore the mysteries of the world. Without realizing it, Yi Chen realized that he had already left the mortal world and reached a higher level. The people down there were just normal people in his eyes. Perhaps their lives would still be interesting, but what they wanted would be completely different. 1 month later, the two arrived at the Sky Martial region. The place where Yan Fengfeng had invited Yi Chen was in the Lotus City, one of the top 10 cities in the world. The whole city was blue and tall. From far away, Yi Chen could already see the tall buildings in the city. The tall ones were hundreds of meters tall, like towers, while the shorter ones were about the same. They seemed to be endless. Shoo! The flying puppet did not slow down at all, rushing into the city directly. The White Cloud restaurant was one of the top 2 restaurants in the city. Although it was luxurious, it was not extravagant. It was made of ancient cloud wood, and had 18 floors in total. Each floor was 20 meters tall, taking up a lot of space. Sitting on the 18th floor of the restaurant, the clouds in the sky seemed very close, as if they could touch them with their hands. Yi Chen. On the 18th floor, Yan Fengfeng saw Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing. Beside her were the disciples of the mysterious martial school and Hai Wu. Putting away the flying puppet, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing floated into the 18th floor of the restaurant. Long time no see. Yi Chen cupped his fists. Hai Wu laughed. You brat, I thought you had forgotten about us. It has been almost 2 years since we last met, right? This time, we have to drink to our heart's content. Alright. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing sat down and poured themselves a cup of wine, drinking it in one gulp. Great. Hai Wu and Yan Fengfeng each drank a cup. Senior Brother Yi. Hello, Senior Brother Yi. The disciples of the mysterious martial school and Sky Ocean Martial School greeted Yi Chen one after another. For many of them, it was their first time seeing Yi Chen, so they were a bit reserved. Yi Chen chuckled. Everyone relax a bit. Hai Wu said, with you here, they won't be able to relax. Don't you think about your current status among the geniuses? But, you will get used to it. Don't mind it too much. Isn't this sword master Yi Chen? So, Yan Fengfeng invited him. Each floor of the restaurant could hold hundreds of people, and those who could be on the 18th floor were either the upper echelons of the martial schools or the top geniuses. Many of them had seen Yi Chen before, and some of them could be considered famous figures in the Sky Martial region. But, the second they saw Yi Chen, they all started gossiping and discussing in low voices. Ever since Yi Chen got the title of Sword Master, he disappeared without a trace. A lot of people said that he was afraid that he could not bear the title. I wonder if those people would still dare to say such things in front of Yi Chen when he comes back. Of course not. They are only talking behind his back. That is true. There are not many who would dare to say it directly. There were a lot of people discussing in low voices, and some of them would look at Yi Chen from time to time. Within a year of Yi Chen's departure, the new ranking had also come out. Duguju was at the forefront, ranked second. Dantai Mingyue shocked the whole crowd the moment she made her move, ranked third. Bai Wuxue had always been at the top level, ranked fourth. The top 20 were almost all occupied by all the top geniuses. The older generation masters were all giving up their positions. As for the first place, it was still Yi Chen. In this era where geniuses were emerging endlessly, Yi Chen was the only one who had been ranked first for 2 consecutive years. In the past, Yi Chen was also one of the many geniuses, but now, his fame had already spread throughout the continent. There were many people who had not seen Yi Chen before, but there were only a pitiful few who had not heard of Yi Chen. However, newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. There were some new geniuses who were not very sure of Yi Chen. They only saw how horrifying Duguju was, how stunning Dantai Mingyue was, and how elegant Bai Wuxue was. As for Yi Chen, he would probably lose the first place sooner or later. After all, no one could guarantee that they would be in a period of rapid development for more than a year, improving by leaps and bounds. In a situation where there was not much difference, many things could be changed in 1 year, such as the change of the Grandmaster ranking. Sword Sex Yi Chen, interesting? There were 3 young men and women sitting at a table near the window. The man on the left had a majestic build. His arms were thicker than ordinary people's legs, and he had a heavy saber on his waist. His eyebrows were very thick and long, and his tiger-like eyes contained a terrifying energy. Next to the majestic young man sat a girl in colorful clothes. She had an exotic charm, big eyes, a high nose bridge, and plump lips. She looked very flirtatious, and her body was incomparably hot. Her skin was a light wheat color, and she looked very healthy. Opposite them was a young man. This person's hands were very long and slender, like bamboo joints. His appearance could not be said to be handsome, but it could not be said to be ugly either. His eyes were narrow and long, and the corners of his eyes were very sharp. At this moment, the corner of his mouth was slightly raised, and there was a trace of evil in it. The clothes of these 3 people did not fit in with the others, and they seemed to have come from very far away. Talking about the sword in front of Brother Liu is just asking to be humiliated. The girl in colorful clothes did not hide her voice at all. Yes. The majestic young man nodded. Who are you people? On a nearby table, a few geniuses who admired Yi Chen creased their brows and asked. We're from the West Ocean. The young man drank his wine without looking sideways. West Ocean? I don't care where you're from, but you'd better have some self-awareness. Yi Chen is not someone you can casually belittle. So what if I belittle him? The young man swirled the wine in his hand, and the sparkling wine swirled around. You're from the West Ocean, and you don't have any achievements on True Spirit Continent. What qualifications do you have to belittle him? The girl in colorful clothes said with a disdainful face, Do you know Lu Xiaoyu? Lu Xiaoyu? Of course I know him. What's the point of talking about him? Although Yi Chen, Duguju, Dantai Mingyue, and Yen Fengfeng had become the top 5 young tycoons, pushing down Lu Xiaoyu and the rest, Lu Xiaoyu was once one of the top 5 young tycoons. No one knew what realm his strength had reached. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu went to the West Ocean, but he couldn't even take 10 swords from Brother Liu. Your so-called sword master Yi Chen might not be that powerful. What? Lu Xiaoyu couldn't even take 10 swords from him, and that was half a year ago. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu was certainly much more powerful than before, but even he couldn't take 10 swords from this young man. Who exactly was this person? Chapter 700. You're not bragging, are you? There's no proof. I don't believe that Lu Xiaoyu couldn't receive 10 sword strikes from him. The first reaction of the genius who spoke was disbelief, thinking that the other side was exaggerating the truth. For example, after exchanging 10 moves, one side felt that his sword art was slightly inferior and directly admitted defeat. This kind of situation was not unheard of. If it were a life and death battle, Exchanging hundreds of moves wouldn't be a problem, but being unable to receive 10 sword strikes was a completely different concept. Bragging. Ask the people of the western regions and see if they've heard of the name West Ocean Sword Master Lu Wujian. The multicolor-robed woman snorted. West Ocean Sword Master was not called West Ocean Sword Master. Its actual meaning was the Sword Master of the West Ocean. If he left the continent, Yi Chen could also be called the continent's Sword Master. After all, Yi Chen's title was obtained on True Spirit Continent. Only on the continent would he be recognized, and vice versa. Clearly, everyone understood the meaning of West Ocean Sword Master's words. Each and every one of them sucked in a breath of cold air. What was going on? Usually, the 4 shallow oceans and True Spirit Continent didn't have the title of Sword Master. Who would have thought that after Yi Chen, another Lu Wujian would appear? One was the continent's Sword Master, and the other was West Ocean Sword Master. So he's also a Sword Master. No wonder he's not convinced of Yi Chen. Everyone suddenly understood. West Ocean Sword Master Yi Chen, you've got an opponent now. Hai Wuya said to Yi Chen with a smile. What's so great about West Ocean Sword Master? Our continent is the Orthodox. A disciple of mysterious sect, who worshipped Yi Chen the most, said in a low voice. Junior brother Wang, don't gossip. Although Yen Fengfeng said so, a smile appeared on her face. Yes, senior sister. I won't say it, but everyone understands. The disciple chuckled. Yi Chen smiled faintly and said, having an opponent is a good thing. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to find an opponent even if I search the entire world. Although Yi Chen was not a life and death king yet, he had already reached a realm where it would be hard to find a worthy opponent in the Sea of Souls realm. Lu Wujian's appearance did not make him unhappy, but instead comforted him. Outside the continent there were 4 shallow oceans, and beyond that, there was still the endless ocean. The number of experts in the world was like the carps in the river. He did not need to worry about not being able to find an opponent. Murong Qingqing knew Yi Chen better than anyone else. She knew that he was a genius swordsman who desired to fight wholeheartedly. She couldn't help but feel proud. This was her man. Under the table, a soft and delicate hand held Yi Chen's palm. The geniuses who had questioned the woman in the colorful dress and the other 2 were stunned speechless. Their opponents were not nameless figures. They were the masters of the West Ocean Sword sect, and their status was equal to that of Yi Chen. In that case, it was possible that Lu Xiaoyu could not withstand 10 sword attacks from them. At least, there was a slight possibility. What's wrong? Not speaking? The multicolor-robed woman revealed a mocking expression. Humph! The genius sat back down. Looking at Yi Chen's position, the multicolor-robed woman slightly raised her head and arrogantly said, the title of sword sect is not something anyone can bear. If you're smart enough, you'd better give up the title of sword sect, lest you humiliate yourself. Naylan, since he can be called sword sect, he certainly has some skill. At the very least, he's much stronger than Lu Xiaoyu. You don't need to belittle him. The slender fingers of Lu Wujian didn't raise his head from start to finish, as if nobody could pique his interest. Brother Lu, I'm a straightforward person, and I say whatever I want to say. However, I don't think I'm wrong. Brother Gu, don't you agree? The multicolor-robed woman asked the majestic youth. Yes. The majestic youth nodded. Murong Qingqing was well aware that Yi Chen would either not retaliate, or once he did, it would be a thunderous blow. It was obvious that the multicolor-robed woman couldn't arouse his anger. After all, she could shut one person's mouth, but she couldn't shut the mouths of all the people in the world. If he became very angry when everyone said a few words about him, then his state of mind would be too poor, and he wouldn't be able to endure it. However, she was Yi Chen's woman, and the multicolor-robed woman was also a woman. Women naturally had to be dealt with by women. She couldn't tolerate a woman speaking ill of her man, so she immediately said mockingly, "Strength isn't determined by words. No matter how extravagant your words are, it's just a fantasy. Who are you? The multicolor-robed woman raised her eyebrows, and her tone was unfriendly. I'm his girlfriend. What's your relationship with the West Ocean Sword Sect? Murong Qingqing countered with a question. The multicolor-robed woman spoke for a long time, but she didn't continue. It was true that she admired Lu Wujian, but she didn't dare to say that she was Lu Wujian's girlfriend. Once she did, it would undoubtedly make him feel disgusted. After all, there were still a few people who were close to Lu Wujian. You're courting death. The multicolor-robed woman's face flushed, and she raised her arm. A red Zhen Yuan whip condensed, and she lashed out at Murong Qingqing, who was several dozen meters away. Break! Murong Qingqing's finger was dyed black as she pointed at the tip of the Zhen Yuan whip. Puff! The Zhen Yuan whip exploded inch by inch, setting off a storm in the restaurant. It rushed out through the window like a beam of light leaking out. You've got some skill. Take my bloodthirsty triple kill. The complexion of the multicolor-robed woman changed, and her expression turned grave. She made a grabbing motion in the air, and the red Zhen Yuan turned into a three-headed scarlet python. This Zhen Yuan python was extremely strange. Its body was very short, but the neck connecting the three heads was very long, even longer than its body. It could instantly attack three distant targets. The three-headed scarlet python flicked its tongue and pounced toward Murong Qingqing with a fiery intent. Darkness sky curtain. Murong Qingqing's right hand drew a half-circle in the void before her. Immediately, a layer of black barrier enveloped the area. As the black barrier formed, Yan Fengfeng and Hai Wuyao were astonished to discover that they seemed to have been isolated from the outside world. What a powerful profound! Hai Wuyao originally thought that although Murong Qingqing's strength was high, it couldn't be that high. But now, he discovered that he didn't even have the confidence to defeat Murong Qingqing. He bitterly smiled. Yi Chen was powerful, but his woman was also this powerful. How could he live? Only Yi Chen knew that Murong Qingqing's strength was not limited to just this. Not to mention Hai Wuyao, even Yan Fengfeng might not be able to defeat Murong Qingqing. With the perfect demonic vessels and demonic power, she was almost equivalent to a human demon's. One could well imagine her battle strength. Pop 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 pop. The three-headed python's attack landed on the black barrier, but it didn't cause a huge explosion. It only produced a slight explosion, as if the energy was absorbed by the barrier. Impossible! The multicolor-robed woman didn't expect Murong Qingqing's strength to be this high. You take my move as well. After dispersing the darkness sky curtain, Murong Qingqing once again pointed at the opponent. This time, it was the demonic finger. Even without the wings, it still had 50 to 60% of its might. Fire crystal shield. The multicolor-robed woman hurriedly raised both her hands in the void, condensing a red crystal-like Zhen Yuan shield. The shield's surface was covered in complicated patterns, and one red light after another flowed out. Pung! Unfortunately, Murong Qingqing's demonic finger was a pure offensive martial skill without a trace of impurities. It easily broke through the fire crystal shield and was about to injure the multicolor-robed woman. Break! Right at this moment, Lu Wujian, who had remained calm and collected, made his move. Without even looking, he raised his left hand's sword fingers and shot out a white-colored sword chi, cutting apart the demonic finger's power. Go! The white sword chi was like a fish swimming in the water. It made a turn in the air and suddenly increased its speed, shooting toward Murong Qingqing's location. He wasn't targeting Murong Qingqing, but Yi Chen. If Yi Chen couldn't even take this move of his, then the title of Sword Master would be in vain, not worthy of his attention. The white sword chi was as fast as lightning. Murong Qingqing might be able to block it if she used her full strength. However, this was a restaurant, and everyone would hold back when fighting. If she couldn't control her power and destroyed the restaurant, then it would be equivalent to losing. Therefore, she didn't make a move, as she knew that Yi Chen was about to make his move. Similarly, the sword qi shot out by Yi Chen was thinner and sharper than the white sword qi. Like a paper knife, it followed the white sword qi's outline and cut it in half. The remaining power of the sword qi didn't dissipate and continued to counterattack. Good move! Lu Wujian, who was known as the West Ocean Sword Master, had a gleam in his eyes. He reached out and pinched Yi Chen's sword qi. The sword qi was still struggling like a slippery eel, but as Lu Wujian exerted a little force, the sword qi dissipated with a puff. As expected of the continent's sword master. You are qualified to be my opponent. However, just this bit of strength is only enough to pique my interest. We will meet again in the future. At that time, it won't be too late to fight. Lu Wujian stood up and said to the multicolor-robed woman and the majestic youth, "Let's go." "Humph, count yourself lucky." The multicolor-robed woman glared at Murong Qingqing. When the three of them walked to the staircase, one of the geniuses couldn't help but say, "Why don't we fight now? Could it be that you're afraid and think that your current strength isn't enough?" Lu Wujian said indifferently, "I will represent my master to meet Sky Sword Master. When I defeat him, there will be plenty of opportunities. At that time, you can come and watch the battle. The location will be at your so-called Nine-Dragon Lake. That place is quite interesting." Meet Sky Sword Master? The person who spoke was dumbstruck. This was a legendary sword artist of the older generation. Although he wasn't a sword master, many people believed that he had the strength of a sword master. "When you see Sky Sword Master, send my regards. The battle a year ago made me very happy." Yi Chen's voice was transmitted. "Send my regards?" Lu Wujian's eyes narrowed. He didn't know Sky Sword Master's strength, but his master had once been defeated by him. Now, he had surpassed his master, and had long since surpassed his master. Therefore, he had come to defeat Sky Sword Master in his master's stead. From Yi Chen's tone, he had clearly fought with Sky Sword Master. As for who won and who lost, the answer was already clear. "Interesting." Lu Wujian smiled and walked down the stairs. All of a sudden, a voice resounded, "September 18th, Nine-Dragon Lake. Let me see what geniuses of true spirit continent are there." The 18th of September was the date of the previous Nine-Dragon Lake battles. Lu Wujian's intention was very clear. He wanted to defeat the numerous geniuses of true spirit continent in this meaningful place and spread the prestige of West Ocean Sword Sect. Wherever he went, there was no one who didn't submit. Chapter 701. Too arrogant. Does he think that he can sweep away all the geniuses of true spirit continent by himself? Many geniuses were indignant. Don't worry. Although West Ocean Sword Master is strong, our continent has many peak geniuses as well. The top 5 of the master's ranking, which one of them isn't independent? Right, Yen Fengfeng is ranked 5th, her speed unparalleled. Bai Wuxue is a veteran young tyrant, steady like a mountain. Dantai Mingyue's movement is marvelous, stunning and nimble, while Duguju's blade art is tyrannical and invincible. Apart from these 4, our continent also has Sword Master Yi Chen. After a year, I wonder what level Yi Chen has reached. He's definitely stronger than before. As for how much stronger, it's hard to say. Let's wait and see. On the 18th of September, we'll know. The crowd discussed spiritedly, their emotions stirring. Yi Chen, my intuition tells me that this West Ocean Sword Master is truly extraordinary. You can't be careless when the time comes. Hai Wuya warned Yi Chen. Yi Chen said, "Don't worry, I won't look down on anyone, nor will I overestimate anyone. In a battle, we'll know who's stronger." "Hee, my warning is unnecessary. You're much calmer than me." Hai Wuya smiled. White Cloud Restaurant was only the first location of the gathering. After drinking, the group of 20 people left Lotus City and flew northwest. This gathering was not just for drinking. How long could one drink last? Usually, this kind of gathering would be held for half a month or even a month. Everybody would get together to get acquainted and talk about their recent situation. After a long time, their feelings would fade, and they would eventually become ordinary friends, or even strangers. One had to know how long the path of martial arts was. It would be too sad to not have friends who could support each other. The path of martial arts was not about destroying one's feelings, but about keeping them inside. Friends who were worth making were true friends, and friends who were not worth making would be forgotten. There were many places of interest in the Tianwu domain. Along the way, Yi Chen saw many youths traveling in group. When they were in the mood, they would find an empty space to drink and chat. Then, they would exchange moves with each other. They were not aiming for victory, just to test their martial arts and experience. This is the Meteorite Mountain Range. 10,000 years ago, a group of meteorites smashed into this place and formed it. Because all the vitality in this place was scattered by the shockwave, the underground rivers were also filled up, causing this place to be barren and devoid of demonic beasts. However, deep underground, a type of hard meteorite crystal can often be found. This crystal is a top-notch material for forging treasures. Yan Fengfeng pointed at a desolate mountain range and explained. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing looked over. Murong Qingqing didn't feel anything, but Yi Chen inwardly clicked his tongue. There were countless craters in this meteorite mountain range. The smallest one was dozens of li in diameter, and the biggest one was thousands of li in diameter. It was like an astonishingly huge iron pot buried in the ground. The bottom of the crater was hundreds of li above the ground, and ordinary martial artists would not be able to climb out if they fell in. Yi Chen was shocked because he came from another world. Even the smallest meteorite here could cover the earth in dust and kill most of the living beings. Only the true spirit continent, which was countless times larger than the earth, could easily withstand the impact of meteorites. Of course, one couldn't directly estimate the size of the meteorite from the size of the crater, because the meteorite falling at high speed would have an impact. The crater was dozens of li in diameter, while the meteorite was a few li in size. That several thousand li wide crater was probably made by 100 li wide meteorite. After passing through the meteorite mountain range, everyone arrived at a huge canyon. This canyon was called Emperor Canyon. It was 99,000 li long, and its widest part reached 1,000 li. It divided the surrounding 100,000 li into two parts. It was a ghastly crack. Flying in the sky and looking down, it was easy to be scared silly. After all, anyone who saw such a crack would suspect whether it was connected to hell or not. They would be afraid that they would be sucked in and never see the light of day again. The reason why the Emperor Canyon was named Emperor was because there was an Emperor Scar stele in the depths of the Emperor Canyon. It was said that only titled monarchs could leave their mark on the Emperor Scar stele. Peak monarchs couldn't even leave a single mark. No one has been able to leave a mark on the stele for several tens of thousands of years? Yan Fengfeng said. Yi Chen doubtfully said, Su King is a titled monarch, but even he couldn't leave a mark? Hai Wuya said, the ancient era's standard is different from the present. With Su King's strength, he could only be considered a peak monarch, not a titled monarch. So that's how it is. Yi Chen faintly nodded. Let's go and take a look. Yan Fengfeng's speed gradually increased as she rushed toward the depths of Emperor Canyon. The others followed closely behind. Roughly an hour later, everyone arrived at the center of Emperor Canyon. Let's go down. Without the slightest hesitation, Yan Fengfeng's figure shot into the canyon. Yi Chen, Murong Qingqing, and Hai Wuya also didn't hesitate. The others exchanged glances and pondered for a moment before clenching their teeth and chasing after them. It was as if there was something in the depths of the canyon that made them afraid. The middle part of the Monarch Canyon was the widest. It had a circumference of over 1,000 li. There was no sign of life in this area, nor were there any miscellaneous items. There was only a stone tablet at the center. The stone tablet was 99 li tall and 9 li wide. There were many marks on it. There were saber marks, sword marks, palm marks, fist marks, finger marks, and even claw marks. They were arranged in order from top to bottom. There were no marks left on the stone tablet from the middle to the bottom. It was a piece of blank space. 100 li away, everyone stopped and slowly descended. It wasn't that they didn't want to approach, but that they couldn't. Emperor Scar's steel wasn't an ordinary steel. The aura it emitted made their genuine blood and even heartbeats go berserk. They could be killed by this aura at any moment. Yen Fengfeng said solemnly, Emperor Scar's steel itself is a miraculous item. The people who left their marks on it were all titled monarch. Although no one has been able to leave a mark on the steel in the past several tens of thousands of years, the remnant aura is still not something ordinary people can endure. We usually call this aura Emperor Qi, the aura of titled monarchs. Emperor Qi, Yi Chen muttered. Yen Fengfeng turned her head and said to the disciples of Mysterious Sect and Sky Ocean Sect, "You guys stay here. Don't get too close." After saying these words, she turned to Yi Chen and the rest. "We can walk forward a bit and see a bit more clearly. The marks on the steel are uncanny workmanship. Even the shallowest mark represents an astonishing accomplishment containing the laws of heaven and earth. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts naturally couldn't enter within 100 li. However, Yen Fengfeng, Hai Wia Yi Chen, and Morong Qinqing were all masters. They could approach a bit closer without any problems. Moreover, beyond 100 li, they truly couldn't see too clearly. The Emperor Qi restricted one's perception and eyesight, concealing the truth. Alright. Yi Chen was extremely interested in Emperor Scar's steel. He could feel countless strands of frightening will on it. There were sword intent, blade intent, fist intent, and so on. Each strand made him feel extremely shocked. Compared to the will on the steel, Yi Chen's destruction sword intent wasn't even worth mentioning. It was like comparing a firefly to the bright moon. 90 li. 80 li. At 75 li, Hai Wia bitterly smiled. He couldn't hold on any longer. Yen Fengfeng and the other two continued forward. 70 li. 60 li. Morong Qinqing stopped, and Yen Fengfeng's complexion was also somewhat pale. "Let's do it here." Yi Chen's expression was calm. The Emperor Qi 60 li away was equivalent to a peak 5th step sword intent. Although it was fierce, Yi Chen had a 5th step destruction sword intent, which was equivalent to an ordinary 6th step sword intent. Therefore, he wasn't affected much. However, he still had to take care of Morong Qinqing and Yen Fengfeng. Yen Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen in admiration and said, "The Emperor Qi emitted by the steel contains different wills. Be careful of the most offensive sword intent and blade intent." "I know." Yi Chen had just suffered a strand of Emperor Qi containing sword intent. It was unknown how many years this strand of sword intent had existed for, but it was still incomparably sharp. Raising his eyes, Yi Chen saw the first mark at the top. It was a fist imprint, square-shaped, as if a jade seal had been stamped on it. The fist imprint was extremely deep. However, due to the passage of time, the Emperor Qi emitted from it was somewhat weak. However, compared to the marks below, the Emperor Qi emitted from this fist imprint was the most boundless, as if an emperor was overlooking the heaven and earth. Yen Fengfeng introduced. The first fist imprint was left behind by the first titled monarch of the ancient era. This monarch was called Ancient Emperor. According to historical records, this fist imprint should have been created by Ancient Emperor's four-way Emperor Fist, which is one of the most famous peak profound martial skills. Shifting their gazes downward, the three saw the second mark. This was a claw mark. An ordinary claw mark naturally wouldn't enter the three's eyes. However, this claw mark made the three's hair stand on end. It was as if this claw had not clawed at the steel, but a piece of land, a mountain, a river, a planet. Anything under this claw would shatter. Moreover, this claw mark was actually emitting a demonic will, instilling great fear in people's hearts. This is the second titled monarch after ancient emperor, heaven-abandoning emperor. Heaven-abandoning emperor walked the demonic Tao, and was also one of the three great demonic Tao kings in human history. At his peak, he left this world for the starry sky and disappeared without a trace. Since then, he has never been seen again. Hearing Yan Fengfeng's words, coupled with her own demonic will, an illusion appeared before Murong Qingqing's eyes. It was as if she was seeing a figure on the Emperor's scar steel. This figure was boundlessly tall, reaching the starry sky and stepping on the earth. Its shadow enveloped the world, and with a wave of its palm, mountains and rivers were destroyed and planets exploded. What a powerful figure! Shaking her head, Murong Qingqing sobered up. She knew that this was not as simple as an illusion. Through Yan Fengfeng's narration, she had a preliminary impression of this figure. Then, heaven-abandoning Emperor's qi surged over and combined with the impression in her mind, giving rise to a mysterious reaction. The eighth sword mark is an anomaly. He doesn't have the strength of a titled monarch, but he has the means to leave a mark on the steel. His title is Sword King. Yan Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen. He is the Sword King, Yi Chen muttered. Under the heavens, in human history, there had only been one Sword King, and that was the ancient Sword King. The reason why Battle King didn't dare to call himself Sword King was because he believed that he hadn't reached the level of the ancient Sword King. Unexpectedly, this Sword King was even more powerful than he had imagined. He was unexpectedly able to leave a sword mark on the steel with the identity of a king. Although this sword mark was very shallow, the aura it emitted was not weak at all. Chapter 702. Sword King's comprehension of profound sword arts is insufficient, but his sword will is not the slightest bit inferior to titled monarchs, even slightly surpassing them. I think this should be the key to his fame being passed down through the ages and leaving sword scars on Emperor's scar steel. Although there weren't many records regarding Sword King, there were still some. Therefore, Yan Fengfeng knew quite a bit. Yi Chen faintly nodded. The sword scars are shallow, which means that the attack power is not high enough. If the aura is not weak, it means that the sword intent is strong. Sword intent could amplify one's attack power, but there was a limit. Sword King's sword moves containing sword intent were clearly weaker than titled monarch. However, his sword intent was at the forefront. Continuing down, shocking scars imprinted themselves in the eyes of the three. Some of these scars were strange and bizarre, such as forks, triangles, prisms, big and small dots, intersecting scars, and yin and yang fish scars. It was unknown what profound martial skills these titled monarchs used. The 398th mark was 70,000 years ago. The most famous titled monarch was called Four Extreme Emperor. He was proficient in space profound, and was famous for his finger arts. At the Sea of Soul Realm, he created a low-grade profound martial skill, void-shattering finger. Its might far surpasses mid-grade profound martial skills. The void-shattering finger has a total of 4 styles, each representing an application of the space profound. The fourth finger's might is the greatest, almost comparable to high-grade profound martial skills. As she spoke, Yan Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen with an odd expression. She had seen Yi Chen use a space profound finger art before. Of course, there were many people who knew space profound throughout the ages. However, for Extreme Emperor was relatively close to the modern era, so his void-shattering finger had some descriptions. The finger art Yi Chen used was very similar to the third style of Four Extreme Emperor's void-shattering finger, only the Zhen Yuan color was different. Apart from this, Xia Hozuan's void-shattering finger should also be the second style of Four Extreme Emperor's void-shattering finger. Void-shattering finger. Yi Chen's expression flickered. He had found the third style of the void-shattering finger in the Goat Head Mountain in the South Rudra region's 100,000 mountain range. At the same time, He had also found a white key with the words Emperor's Tomb, Aries constellation, written on it. Could it be that the Emperor's Tomb was the tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor, and the white key was the key to open it? For Extreme Emperor has 4 subordinates, all of whom are life and death kings and also demonic beasts. They are Azure Wolf King, White Sheep King, Fire Bird King, and Sky Scorpio King. Azure Wolf King represents Wolf constellation, White Sheep King represents Aries constellation, and Fire Bird King and Sky Scorpio King represent Fire Bird constellation and Scorpio King respectively. For Extreme Emperor imparted each of them a void-shattering finger, allowing them to comprehend the space profound. Aries King, Aries constellation? Yi Chen understood everything. The void-shattering finger that he cultivated was indeed created by the 4 Extreme Sovereign, and the 4 Extreme Sovereign had taught the 3rd style of the void-shattering finger to the Aries King. That was why the white key had the words Aries constellation. Yen Fengfeng continued, 4 Extreme Emperor was the same as the heaven-abandoning Emperor. He also entered the starry sky, disappearing for 100 years before returning. However, when he returned, he had suffered an incurable injury, as if he had encountered something frightening in the starry sky. Sensing that his life was at its end, the 4 Extreme Emperor built his own tomb in a forbidden region. This tomb contained countless arrays and the heaven-shaking power that the 4 Extreme Emperor had unleashed before his death. Even life and death kings would have a slim chance of survival if they tried to force their way in. Later on, his 4 subordinates also died one after another. They were subordinates of the 4 Extreme Emperor, and after death, they wished to accompany him. They built 4 tombs in the surroundings of the 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb. Opening these 4 tombs required a special key. Since these 4 tombs were connected to the 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb, life and death kings would have a hard time barging in. After so many years, has anyone found the location of the 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb? Yi Chen suddenly asked. The 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb was undoubtedly the tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor. Yen Fengfeng shook her head. I'm not sure. The tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor was built in a moving forbidden region. Even life and death kings would have a hard time finding it. And even if they found it, without the key, they might not be able to open the tomb. The location of the tomb has always been a hot topic, but I've never heard of anyone finding it or entering it. Even if they did, they probably wouldn't spread the news. That's true. Yi Chen faintly nodded. His soul power entered his storage ring. On a bookshelf in the corner, a huge white key was quietly placed there. The 4 Extreme Emperor was an extremely famous titled monarch. Even life and death kings covet his space profound martial skill. I'm afraid that once it appears, it will cause a reign of terror. Even Su King and my master will have to make a move. Yen Fengfeng continued. That's for sure. At the Sea of Soul realm, the comprehension of profounds depended on the quality, not the quantity. It was impossible to comprehend too many profounds at the same time. Having a few was already good enough. However, at the life and death realm, one could enter the state of being one with the heavens at any time, and their comprehension ability would increase by countless folds. Comprehending profounds would be extremely fast. As a result, the demand for profounds would increase by a lot. After all, different profounds would have different effects and might. Apart from the main profounds, how could a few profounds be enough? Space profound was one of the strongest profounds and was related to many profound. As long as one could obtain a space profound martial skill, it would be of great help. Of course, the grade of void-shattering finger was a bit low, and life and death kings might not be too enthusiastic about it. It would be best if one had it, but it wouldn't matter if one didn't. What life and death kings truly cared about were mid-grade space profound martial skills, or even high-grade ones. After all, void-shattering finger was only a low-grade profound martial skill, but its might already surpassed mid-grade profound martial skills. In that case, high-grade space profound martial skills would at least be equivalent to peak grade profound martial skills. My current strength is still far from enough. For Extreme Emperor's space profound martial skill has already become a legend. I can only look up to it from afar. Above mid-grade profound sense martial skills were high-grade profound sense martial skills, peak-grade profound sense martial skills, and above that would be the heavenly Tao law. Above Sea of Soul realm were half-step kings, ordinary life and death kings, peak kings, and titled monarchs. Each rank was like a huge chasm. Without the will and determination to break through everything, one would not be able to cross it. For Extreme Emperor already stood at the peak of this world, while Yi Chen was at most a youngster who had just grown up. The gap between the two was too great. Gazing at the finger hole left behind by For Extreme Emperor, Yi Chen felt as if he was looking at a giant looking down at him with cold eyes. After For Extreme Emperor, only 13 titled monarchs remained. It could be seen that as the modern era got closer and closer, the gap between the monarchs who left their marks was getting longer and longer. From the ancient era to the early medieval era, there would be one every 1,000 years. From the medieval era to the early near ancient era, there would be one every 1,500 years. From the near ancient era, there would be one every several thousand years. For some unknown reason, the number of titled monarchs kept decreasing. In the modern era, there weren't even any true titled monarchs, because only those who left their marks on the Emperor's scar stele could be considered as true titled monarchs. The last titled monarch was a world-shaking genius. Before him, there hadn't been a titled monarch who could leave his mark on the stele for 10,000 years. Until he appeared, his title was Yuan Emperor. Yuan Emperor had an innate body and boundless Jin Yuan. While Yen Fengfeng was explaining Yuan Emperor, in a valley far away, a great battle was taking place. The two sides were none other than Master Sky Sword and West Ocean Sword Master, Lu Wujian. Master Sky Sword, seems like my master overestimated your strength. There's no need for me to make a move. He can defeat you. While fighting Master Sky Sword, Lu Wujian still had the strength to speak. Humph, it's only the beginning. Master Sky Sword's voice was somewhat hurried. Sky Sword style, White Flood Dragon. As he spoke, Master Sky Sword's long sword slashed, and a white silk-like sword chi tore through the air. The sword chi stretched and stretched, bending and straightening like a nimble white flood dragon, piercing through the void. It was as fast as a flickering light, unable to be captured by the naked eye. Wave Cleaver. Facing this sword, Lu Wujian's figure flickered a few times. His entire being seemed to shift through the void as he chopped off the white flood dragon sword chi's head. Sure enough, it's his style. Master Sky Sword's brows furrowed. In truth, when he defeated Lu Wujian's master, it was only a narrow victory. The latter's clean and efficient style had left a deep impression on him. Lu Wujian's style was very similar to his master's. Of course, it didn't mean that Lu Wujian was walking the same path as his master. It could only be said that the styles of the West Ocean were more or less the same. Different living environments naturally led to different philosophies. Sky Sword style, Sky Cleaver. Seeing that his first strike had no effect, Master Sky Sword attacked once again. This sword strike was very similar to Lu Wujian's Wave Cleaver, clean and efficient. Haha. Is this the move that you created based on my master? Unfortunately, even my master isn't my opponent. How could you be? Lu Wujian soared into the sky and fiercely stabbed out with his longsword. Rings of chi revolved around the longsword, instantly piercing through Master Sky Sword's sword chi. So fast. Master Sky Sword was gobsmacked. His Sky Sword style Sky Cleaving was a speed-type sword that didn't have the slightest variation. All it had was an indomitable will that burst forth with astonishing potential. However, Lu Wujian's sword speed was even faster than his, as if this kind of sword speed was nothing special to him. Sky Sword style, Sword Array. Finally, Master Sky Sword took out his strongest move. 18 true yuan longswords flew out of his body. With a shake of the longsword in his hand, the 18 longswords revolved around the longsword in his hand, rapidly forming a sword array. As soon as the sword array was formed, its aura immediately soared. Astonishing sword chi pierced through the sky, raising the valley to the ground. The grass and trees were also startled, uprooting from the ground like small swords. Go! Slashing the longsword in his hand, Master Sky Sword roared. Immediately, the sword array flew toward Lu Wujian. Sword array interesting. However, this is far from enough. Master Sky Sword, take my self-created move, Shifting Ocean Sword Chi. Lu Wujian held the longsword with both hands, slashing it from bottom to top. As if moving an ocean, a majestic force erupted, condensing into a deep white sword chi that engulfed the heaven and earth, clashing with the incoming sword array. Crackle! How could the sword formation block this mighty sword chi? In an instant it was shattered and sent flying back. Danger! Master Sky Sword's face changed color as he held his long sword horizontally in front of him. The next moment, the deep white sword chi swept over. Puff! Spurting out a large mouthful of blood, Master Sky Sword was sent flying like an arrow piercing through the sky. Chapter 703. There were not many people watching this battle, but they were all famous figures, such as Su Yuan of the Earth Sword Sect, Master Yuan Sword Sect, who was on good terms with the Sky Sword Sect, and the eldest disciple of the Sky Sword Sect, Master Wind Lightning Sword Sect. Although these people were not as famous as the Sky Sword Sect, they were still in the top 10 or 20 among the Sword Dao Grandmasters. Master has been injured. Wind Thunder Sword Master was more than 70 years old, but still seemed to be in the prime of his life. His mouth was wide open, his face full of disbelief. He knew that Yi Chun had defeated his master, Master Sky Sword. According to his master, Yi Chun had only won by relying on the defensive sword art. Without the defensive sword art, the two were equally matched. However, this West Ocean Sword Master seemed to have defeated his master easily. The difference was too great. Dozens of li away, Master Sky Sword stopped retreating, blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth like a snake. What a great move, ocean-shifting sword chi! This is the most majestic and powerful sword move I've ever seen. You've indeed surpassed your master, far surpassing your master. Master Sky Sword's expression was solemn. He had never been suppressed like this in a battle between sword masters. Even Yi Chun was only slightly better than him with the defensive sword art. If they were to fight to the death, even if he was killed, Yi Chun wouldn't feel good. I still have the power to fight. Lu Wujian was slightly surprised. This sword contained the profoundness of wind and water. The water profoundness was already at minor completion, and the wind profoundness was close to minor completion. When combined, it was far beyond mid-grade profound martial arts. Adding the ingenious use of power, no profound martial arts of the same level could block it. Unfortunately, I have developed a new Sky Sword style in the past year. Now I will use you to test it, Master Sky Sword said lightly. Ha ha! Hearing this, Lu Wujian laughed. Using me to test your moves? I'm afraid I won't be impressed by your sword moves. But I will give you a chance. Go all out. Lu Wujian quietly waited for Master Sky Sword's strongest move. Master Sky Sword didn't get angry. He raised his arm and placed the long sword in front of his chest, as if performing the most pious sword salute. Sword of Understanding. With a slash of the long sword, the Heavenly Sword Sect unleashed the latest Heavenly Sword style. No one could describe how fast this sword was. This sword seemed to have caused time to stop and thoughts to stagnate. Lu Wujian, who bore the brunt of this attack, could feel the terror of this sword the most. If Sect Master Sky Sword's previous attack had only piqued his interest, then this Sword of Understanding had already brought him some threat. Ultimate kill. 1,000 miles thread. The Heaven Sword Sect had the Sword of Understanding, but Lu Wujian also had his own trump card. Before this, he hadn't been serious at all. He grasped the sharp longsword in his hand and swung it in the air. A moment later, a white ray of light shot out. At a glance, it was like the line between the sea and the sky, vast, profound, and unreachable. Puff! Master Sky Sword's sword of understanding was extremely powerful. His sword chi condensed into a straight line, while Lu Wujian's 1,000 miles thread was similar, condensing into a straight line. However, when the two attacks collided, the one that collapsed was Master Sky Sword's sword of understanding. That was because Lu Wujian's attack contained too much power, and there was no end to it at all. No matter how powerful the sword of understanding was, how could it block it? What a profound water profound! Master Sky Sword's eyes narrowed. How could he not see that Lu Wujian also contained the two profound essences of wind and water? But it was different from the sea-shifting sword chi. This 1,000 miles thread used the water profound as the main element, displaying the water profound to the fullest. When facing this move, it was like being in the sea. Although one could see the line between the sea and the sky, no matter how fast one was, one would never be able to reach it. Creak! The 1,000 miles thread shattered the sword of understanding and slashed at Master Sky Sword's chest at a speed that he couldn't dodge in time. In the next moment, a loud metallic sound resounded. Master Sky Sword's hair was disheveled as he flew back while spurting blood. Unlike the previous time, his injuries were extremely severe. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were almost displaced, and his blood was flowing in reverse. To be able to force me to use 1,000 miles thread, you should be proud of yourself. Unfortunately, your potential has been exhausted. In the future, the gap between us will only grow bigger and bigger. Sheathing his longsword, Lu Wujian said to the majestic young man and the multicolor-robed woman, "Let's go!" Swish! 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 The three disappeared from everyone's sight like flickering lights. "Master, are you all right?" Master Tempest Sword immediately rushed over to support Master Sky Sword. Master Sky Sword's face was ashen as he waved his hand. "I won't die." Master Earth Sword sucked in a deep breath and asked, "Master Sky Sword, in your opinion, what is the extent of this Lu Wujian's strength?" I reckon he can sweep through all sea of soul masters on true spirit continent." Master Sky Sword pondered for a while before speaking. "What? How is that possible?" Master Earth Sword and Master Yuan's sword were astonished. "Isn't there still Yi Chen?" Su Yuan blurted out. Master Sky Sword smiled bitterly. "In the past year, I've created the Sword of Understanding, and my strength has improved by a lot. A year ago, Yi Chen's strength was higher than mine. If he had continued to make rapid progress, he would at most be on par with the current Lu Wujian. However, I can feel that Lu Wujian's true strength is far from this. He hasn't used all his trump cards yet." Master Sky Sword originally believed that Lu Wujian's strength was only at this level. However, as soon as 1,000 miles thread appeared, he immediately sensed that Lu Wujian had an even stronger trump card. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so arrogant. If Yi Chen wanted to defeat him, it would be extremely difficult. This, Su Yuan and Master Yuan's sword exchanged a glance. "Sigh, I hope my guess is wrong." Master Sky Sword shook his head once more and left under the support of Master Wind Lightning. "This matter is getting out of hand." Su Yuan's face was filled with worry. As a master of true spirit continent, he didn't want to see all the Master Sea of Soul Realm experts of the continent being swept by a youngster of West Ocean. "Perhaps there will be a turn for the better," Master Yuan's sword said in a low voice. In the depths of North Ocean was a group of floating islands. At the center of the group was an inverted cone-shaped floating island. This island was boundless, with mountains, basins, forests, volcanoes, rivers, plains, and valleys. At the edge of the floating island, large and small waterfalls cascaded down, pouring down on the floating island below. At the same time, Waterfalls also cascaded down from the floating island, flowing down to the floating island below. From afar, this group of floating islands was like a paradise, a wonder of the immortal world. It was truly beautiful, magnificent, and exquisite at the same time. On the inverted cone-shaped floating island, there was a huge palace that occupied several thousand hectares. Inside the palace, a middle-aged man and a youngster were standing one after another. In front of them was a model of a continent. Based on its shape and geographical distribution, one could tell at a glance that it was a model of true spirit continent. Above the model were numerous sparkling and translucent lines intertwining, covering the entire sky above the model. At a glance, it was simply impossible to count. There were at least millions of them intertwining together. The middle-aged man waved his finger, and a light dot landed on the thin line at the center of the continent. That was the central region, Sky Marshal Region. Tioner, go to Sky Marshal Region. The youngster said respectfully, Master, why do you want me to go to Sky Marshal Region? If my guess is correct, the Forbidden Region carrying 4 Extreme Emperor's graveyard will move to Sky Marshal Region within a year. You possess the first style of Void Shattering Finger and Sky Scorpio King's Key, which means that this graveyard is fated with you. However, fate is fleeting and you have to fight for it yourself. 4 Extreme Emperor's graveyard will move to Sky Marshal Region. The youngster sucked in a deep breath and bowed respectfully. Yes, Master. Remember, Void Shattering Finger has 4 styles, and there are also 4 keys to open the graveyard. The other 3 keys should be in the hands of others. If you can snatch them, do it. If you can't, then cooperate with them. I have a premonition that with the 4 Void Shattering Finger styles and the 4 keys, you should be able to enter 4 Extreme Emperor's graveyard. Rest assured, Master. With my strength, unless it's a half-step king or a life-and-death king, nobody can be my opponent. A cold light flickered in the youngster's eyes. Your master knows your strength the best. However, Sky Marshal Region is a holy land for geniuses. Perhaps there aren't many who can contend against you, but there are certainly some who you can't kill. I can't kill them. The youngster declined to comment. All right, you can go now. The middle-aged man waved his hand. Farewell, Master. The youngster turned around and left the palace, soaring into the sky and flying in the direction of True Spirit Continent, soon disappearing without a trace. Waiting for the youngster to leave, the middle-aged man clasped his hands behind his back. 4 Extreme Emperor's graveyard has appeared. It's time for me to take a look. I wonder what level the strength of those fellows from True Spirit Continent has reached. I hope they won't disappoint me. Dragon King should come out of seclusion soon. With a wave of his hand, the model of True Spirit Continent disappeared into the void, and the middle-aged man's figure flickered, disappearing from the palace. Emperor Canyon, Yi Chun and the rest had long since left. On Emperor Scar Steel, the traces left behind by 4 Extreme Emperor flickered faintly like an illusion. In the following month, Yi Chun and the group traveled to a lot of places. There were natural wonders and strange terrains caused by ancient king-level battles. There were countless of them. A month passed, and everyone went their separate ways. Yi Chun and Murong Qingqing didn't return to South Rudra region. It was already August, only a month away from 18th of September. If they went back, they wouldn't have enough time. Therefore, they might as well stay in Sky Marshal region. During this period of time, the news of West Ocean Sword Master Lu Wujian defeating Master Sky Sword spread like wildfire. Soon after, the incident at White Cloud Restaurant spread as well. Combining the two matters, it immediately created a sensation. Many people knew that a sword master named Lu Wujian had come to West Ocean. Apart from defeating Master Sky Sword in his master's stead, he was also going to meet the geniuses of True Spirit Continent on 18th of September. West Ocean Sword Master, Continent's Sword Master. This was just a gimmick. Adding Lu Wujian's arrogant words, Nine Dragon Lake once again welcomed a golden age after 2 years. At that time, the number of people heading to Nine Dragon Lake would probably surpass that of the past, because this time was different from the last. This time represented the dignity of true Spirit Continent. If all of them were defeated by Lu Wujian, it would be tantamount to admitting that true Spirit Continent was inferior to West Ocean.